Chapter 45:18. Humph, Long Kiba, you're up to no good. West Mountain Elder's face suddenly turned cold. No. I wouldn't dare. I'm telling the truth. Long Kiba was startled. He was in a hurry to get someone else to do his dirty work, but he forgot that West Mountain Elder was a shrewd person. He couldn't hide his dirty thoughts from him at all. The truth? Is Chi Mingyuan an idiot? Why would he provoke me? The West Mountain Old Master squinted at Long Kiba and said, I have no enmity with the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Why did you kill these people so recklessly? Do you think my life is too easy? Do you want to provoke the big shots of the righteous sects to cause trouble for me? Senior, please don't be angry. I didn't think it through. Long Kiba didn't dare to talk back to West Mountain Elder, so he could only sincerely admit his mistake. However, he kept cursing in his heart. A dignified opening stage evil cultivator giant doesn't even dare to destroy the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. What a coward. If word of this gets out, I'll be laughed at. It's better to be safe than sorry. I'm a famous figure in all the righteous sects on the Heavenly Island. I have to be careful with my every move. If I'm caught, the consequences will be unimaginable, West Mountain Elder said in a deep voice. At his level of strength, he had long passed the stage of recklessness. As the saying goes, a tall tree attracts the wind. He could be unscrupulous in West Mountain, but now that he was out of West Mountain, even in the chaotic South Continent Sea, he had to keep a low profile. After all, the saying that good and evil cannot coexist with each other was not as simple as it sounded. Killing was unavoidable, but it had to be done with a good reason. Shishan Old Master hunting Lin Yi down was to avenge his two disciples. It was a matter of course. No one would think there was anything wrong with it. Even the righteous sects couldn't find fault with it. However, every debt has a debtor. If West Mountain Elder killed innocent people, other than Lin Yi himself, he would also kill the entire Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Even if he was an opening stage evil cultivator giant and seemed to be invincible. Don't forget that the righteous sects also had opening stage evil cultivators, even if there weren't any in the South Continent Sea. There are always other places. Moreover, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was now publicly acknowledged as the leader of the righteous Tao in the South Continent Sea. If the West Mountain Old Sect dared to destroy the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, it would be equivalent to challenging the entire righteous Tao on Heaven's Stage Island. If that really happened, it might be another time when the 6 major sects besieged Light Summit. How could the old and cunning West Mountain Elder do such a stupid thing that would bring trouble upon himself? Putting aside the fact that there was no enmity between him and the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, even if there was a grudge between them, he would not have dared to attack them for no reason given their current status. Yes, Senior is indeed far-sighted. Compared to you, I am still too childish and impulsive. Long Kiba could only smile apologetically and try to curry favor with him. Then, he probed with hope in his heart, Senior, you don't have any other matters this time, right? You must stay in our escort agency for a while, so that our juniors can have the opportunity to show their filial piety. Forget it. Since I've already said so, I'll give it to you. I might as well stay at your Dragon Boat Escort Agency for a period of time. West Mountain Elder nodded. This was the reason why he came here. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come. Thank you, Senior. Long Kiba was overjoyed, and the stone in his heart finally fell to the ground. He hurriedly ordered, hurry up and prepare a room for Senior. Remember, it must be the best. If you dare to be negligent in this matter, I'll kill you all. Yes. Everyone hurriedly answered. This was a room prepared for a founding stage evil cultivator. Even if they had 100 guts, they wouldn't dare to be negligent. I have something to say first. I promised to stay here, but it's not for nothing. West Mountain Elder suddenly said, my cultivation requires a female in the nascent soul stage to cooperate with me. So, you have to find some female in the nascent soul stage for me. This is the minimum condition. Huh? Female in the nascent soul stage? Where can I find them? Long Kiba was instantly dumbfounded. There were not many female cultivators, and the higher the level, the rarer they were. Moreover, most of them were concentrated in the West Island. In the South Continent Sea, which was famous for its chaos, it was rare to see a few female cultivators in the golden core stage, let alone female cultivators in the nascent soul stage. Humph, if it was so easy to find, would I still need you? West Mountain Elder glanced at Long Kiba and curled his lips. Do you really think that you don't need to do anything and you can let me stay here for your dragon boat escort agency? How can there be such a good thing in the world? You're the head of an escort agency. You can't be so childish and naive, right? Senior, you're right. I'll do my best and won't let you down. Long Kiba wanted to cry but had no tears. Where could he find female cultivators in the nascent soul stage? Did he have to go all the way to the West Island to kidnap them? Even if he really dared to go to the West Island, it was impossible for him to capture female cultivators in the nascent soul stage alive. After all, he was only a master in the nascent soul stage. If he was lucky enough to meet one, he might not even be able to defeat her, let alone capture her alive. But now that things had come to this, how could Long Kiba dare to say no? It wasn't easy for him to get West Mountain Elder to stay here, but now that things had come to this, he said he didn't want him. Wasn't that just messing with West Mountain Elder? How many lives did he, Long Kiba, have? How dare he mess with an evil cultivator in the opening mountain period? Then I'll wait for your good news. The West Mountain old ancestor smiled with satisfaction. If he could really find a nascent soul female cultivator, it would be a piece of cake for him with his strength. However, he had too many misgivings. If he let Long Kiba collect them on his behalf, the risk would be much smaller. Even if he caused any trouble, he could let Long Kiba take the blame. Poor Long Kiba didn't know about this. In fact, even if he guessed West Mountain Elder's sinister intentions, he had no other choice. Since he decided to cooperate with West Mountain Elder, an evil cultivator in the opening mountain period, he was bound to pay a corresponding price while getting huge benefits. Taking the blame was just one of them. Long Kiba tried his best to flatter West Mountain Elder. Under his orders, the news that West Mountain Elder was in charge of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency spread like wildfire. Soon, it spread all over the streets and alleys. In just an hour, everyone in Wayark City knew about it. For a moment, the limelight of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency overshadowed the grand return of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. It became the focus of everyone's discussion. After all, it was an evil cultivator in the opening mountain period, a super existence that the entire South Continent had to look up to. When the news reached the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, Qi Mingyuan, Qi Wenhan, and the others couldn't help but be shocked. Chapter 45-19. This was good news for the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, but it was bad news for the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. If the West Mountain Elder was unhappy, he could easily wipe out the entire Heavens Equal Escort Agency. What would they do then? This kind of thing wasn't impossible, in fact, it was extremely possible. However, in the midst of their fear, other than the bad news of Shishan Elder being in charge of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, they finally heard a piece of good news. Lin Yi didn't die, at least not at the hands of Shishan Elder. That's great, Brother Ling did not disappoint us. I knew that anything that happened to him would not be strange, ha 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 ha. Qi Wenhan was overjoyed. In comparison, the threat of the West Mountain Elder was completely ignored by him. Young Hero Ling is truly a rare genius, even the West Mountain Elder could not do anything to him, this is really. Qi Mingyuan was overjoyed, but he could not help but be dumbfounded. The West Mountain Elder was an evil cultivator of the mountain opening stage, yet he failed to kill a golden core stage expert. If this did not come from the mouth of the West Mountain Elder, no one would believe it. To be able to escape the West Mountain Elder's pursuit is indeed worthy of celebration. However, young Hero Ling is currently trapped in the southern island, it is still very dangerous. Honest Chai, who rushed over after hearing the news, was still worried. "Shopkeeper Chai, don't worry about this. Brother Ling is a virtuous person, even the West Mountain Elder could not take his life. The spiritual beasts are the same. Let's just wait for him to return." Qi Wenhan, on the other hand, was full of confidence in Lin Yi. After witnessing so many miracles from Lin Yi, he couldn't help but worship Lin Yi blindly. He was almost treating Lin Yi as his idol. That's right, young hero Ling has been to Lufeng Forest before and has the experience of surviving in the southern island. Who knows, he might be able to survive this time. We don't need to worry too much. Qi Mingyuan agreed. That's true, with young hero Ling's strength, he will definitely be able to return safely. This time, I will definitely be able to return safely. Honest Chai nodded. The sudden appearance of the Western Mountains' old sect master had caused a huge commotion in Velvet Arc City at the beginning, causing everyone in the Heavens Equal Escort Agency to be in a state of panic. After that, he did not do anything else. He merely stayed in the Dragon Boat Escort Agency and did not take a single step out of the agency. As time passed, the focus of the public gradually shifted away from the West Mountain Old Sect Master. It seemed that the appearance of this evil cultivator at the mountain opening period did not have much impact on Wei Arc City. It was just that the Dragon Boat Escort Agency's business had improved a little, that was all. However, even with the presence of the West Mountain Old Sect leader, the business of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency only recovered to its previous level and did not reach a particularly explosive level. In fact, most of the businesses that came to them were scattered businesses, and they could only earn a small profit. As for the long-term and huge orders like the Hong Chamber of Commerce, there was not a single one. Firstly, the majority of these large orders from the Chamber of Commerce had been placed during the South Continent Escort Agency Alliance conference that day. The Dragon Boat Escort Agency didn't get to eat the meat at that time. Now, it was destined that they could only drink some thin soup. Secondly, most of the Chamber of Commerce trusted the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. After all, it was the true overlord of the escort agencies. Its strength and reputation were top-notch, but it was hard to say for the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. Since they were related to evil cultivators, their reputation was naturally not good. Now that the West Mountain Old Sect leader was in charge, there was no doubt about their strength. The problem was, who could guarantee that the West Mountain Old Sect leader would always stay in the Dragon Boat Escort Agency? What if the Chamber of Commerce signed long-term contracts with them and the West Mountain Old Sect leader suddenly left one day? Wouldn't that be a huge loss for them? Merchants were born to pursue profits. If they couldn't see stable returns, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens for them to fork out large amounts of spiritual jades. Long Kiba, who was looking forward to surpassing the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, was obviously not satisfied with this result. He didn't expect that with the West Mountain Old Sect leader personally in charge, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency's business would be in such a half-dead state. This was completely different from the hot situation he had expected. This enormous disparity simply caused Long Kiba to be depressed to the point of wanting to spit blood. After all, he'd been forced to search for nascent soul-stage female cultivators every single day these past few days. How could he endure such great pressure in exchange for such a small amount of benefits? However, no matter how depressed Long Kiba was, there was nothing he could do. After all, business was a matter of mutual consent. As an escort agency owner, he couldn't use the West Mountain Old Sect leader's name to go out and force those Chamber of Commerce to buy and sell, right? If he really caused an uproar, the first person to look for him would be the West Mountain Old Sect leader. This evil cultivator was determined to keep a low profile. Wasn't Long Kiba looking for trouble for him? Wei Arc City returned to its usual peace. If there was really a difference, it would be that there were obviously more outsiders coming to the Wei Arc waters. This was the central effect brought about by the overlord of the escort agency. In the past, everyone went to the Devil Cold Waters, but now, it was the Wei Arc waters' turn. In the forest of the southern island, after the ghostly thing scared away the West Mountain Old Sect leader, Lin Yi stayed at the same place to rest and recuperate. After healing his injuries, he continued to move forward in the dense forest. Although it was a completely unfamiliar place, with a competent guide like the ghostly thing, he didn't have to worry about getting lost. However, what made Lin Yi feel rather strange was that he had been walking in this dense forest for a whole 3 days and 3 nights, but he still hadn't encountered a single spiritual beast. This was the base camp of the spiritual beasts. Logically speaking, a powerful spiritual beast should be kicked out at any time. How could there not be a single spiritual beast? This didn't make sense. After all, even in the very edge of Lufeng Forest, traces of spiritual beasts could often be found. Now, according to the ghostly thing, this place was much closer to the core hinterland of the southern island than Lufeng Forest. If Lufeng Forest was said to be a remote mountain village, then this place was at least a junction between the city and the suburbs. However, this scene was a little too abnormal. Not only Lin Yi, but even the ghostly thing felt a little strange at this time. No matter how one looked at it, this indeed couldn't be considered normal. If the edge was so empty, it would make sense. However, after walking for 3 days and 3 nights, they were already deep in the hinterland, but it was still as dead as a ghost. It really didn't make sense. Senior, should we continue to walk in? Why don't we go back? I feel that this place is a little weird. Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. There must be something wrong if something was abnormal, especially when this place was the base camp of the spiritual beasts. If they let their guard down, it would be fatal. Chapter 45-20. Lin Yi knew very well that he must not be greedy or curious in a place like the South Island because any one of them would lead to disaster and death. It's indeed abnormal. It seems like something big has happened. Let's go and take a look, the ghost said after a moment of hesitation. Okay. Lin Yi did not object. Although his rationality told him that it might be dangerous to go on like this, since the ghost insisted on taking a look, of course, he would accompany it to the end. After all, they were on the same side. Moreover, Lin Yi could see that even though the ghost could not protect itself, it was still very concerned about the spirit beasts. It said that it did not want to go back to the spirit beasts, but it would unconsciously remember the slightest sign of trouble. To a certain extent, this senior spirit beast was actually quite arrogant. Lin Yi continued on his way to the core area, but he was much more careful with every step he took. This place was supposed to be a place where powerful spirit beasts gathered, but it had become so strange. He didn't even need to think to know that something was amiss. One wrong move and he'd be doomed. Along the way, another day passed. Lin Yi was more and more surprised. Could something big have happened to the spirit beasts? Just when Lin Yi could not hold back his curiosity, the ghost's voice suddenly sounded in his mind, "Wait, don't go any further." Lin Yi quickly stopped and found a hidden corner to hide himself. He looked around and found nothing special, so he could not help but ask in surprise, "Senior, what did you find?" "There are many spirit beasts gathered in front, and their auras are not weak. If you continue to go there, you'll definitely be discovered," the ghost said in a deep voice. Many spirit beasts gathered in front? Lin Yi was shocked. He did not sense them at all, so there should be a long distance to the gathering place of the spirit beasts. Moreover, the ghost said that these spirit beasts were not weak. They must be extremely powerful existences. Many spirit beasts have very unique auras. Even if they consciously hide their auras, they can't completely hide it. You human cultivators can't sense it, but you can't hide it from my senses, the ghostly thing explained. Then, what do we do now? Lin Yi asked. Since there were peerlessly powerful spiritual beasts in front of him, a human cultivator like him would be courting death if he went over rashly. However, if he retreated now, it would go against his original intention. After all, he only knew that there were many spiritual beasts gathered together, but he did not know what was going on. For the sake of safety, we can't go any further. The ghost being pondered for a brief moment. It really wanted to know what had happened to the spirit beasts, but it had to ensure Lin Yi's safety first. It could not let Lin Yi take such a huge risk. Therefore, the ghost creature would rather retreat in this situation. In any case, if something were to happen to the spirit beasts, it would not be able to do anything in its current state. All it could do was watch from the sidelines. All right. Since the ghost had said so, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't force it. Even if he wanted to help, he had to first have the strength to do so. At least with his current strength at the peak of the middle stage of Gold Core, it was far from enough to intervene in the affairs of the spirit beasts. After taking a deep breath, Lin Yi immediately carefully restrained his breath and prepared to withdraw. However, at this moment, the ghost creature suddenly shouted softly, "Don't move." At the same time, a powerful divine sense, like a monstrous blazing wave, suddenly crossed the top of Lin Yi's head. Lin Yi thought that his strength was not weak, but compared with the owner of this divine sense, he was at most a grain of sand. While the ghost creature was at least a vast and boundless sea of sand. There was no comparison between them. At this moment, Lin Yi's heart was even more horrified than when he faced the Shishan elder sect, the evil cultivator of the mountain opening period. It was much more shocking and horrifying. The feeling of having goosebumps all over his body in an instant once again made Lin Yi deeply understand what it meant to be unreachable and daunting. This is. Lin Yi couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. He carefully used divine sense to communicate with the ghost creature in his mind. The ghost creature was silent for a moment, then it slowly said two words in a very complicated tone. "Zhu Quebec." Lin Yi suddenly became silent. No wonder it was so horrifying. No wonder a random divine sense was more shocking than the Shishan elder sect. It turned out to be the top elder of the spirit beast clan. No wonder a single divine sense was so hot and terrifying. Even Lin Yi, who had always been accustomed to using frenzied fire, couldn't bear it. It turned out to be Zhu Ke, the ancestor of playing with fire. Apart from the former king of the spirit beasts, a top-notch elder like the Vermilion Bird was the pinnacle of the spirit beast clan. The spirit beast clan had always strictly adhered to the law of the jungle. For a top-notch elder to be able to intimidate so many powerful spirit beasts, one could imagine how terrifying his power was. However, Lin Yi immediately thought that the ghost creature living in the space of the Jade Pendant at the moment was once in existence at the same level as Zhu Quebec. Naturally, their strength should not be too different. Although he had long known that the ghost creature was the top elder of the spirit beast clan, Lin Yi had no idea how strong the ghost creature was in its heyday. In private, he had made various speculations about the levels of human cultivators. He had guessed the nascent soul stage, the profound ascension stage, and the mountain opening stage. In the secular world, he had ridiculously thought that it was heaven's stage great perfection. But now, he finally experienced it. At the same time, Lin Yi unconsciously broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, when he first encountered the ghost creature in the secular world, this guy was already in a broken spirit. Otherwise, if it still had 1/10,000th of its strength, he wouldn't even know how he died. After being silent for a long time with lingering fear, Lin Yi finally managed to recover and asked, "Senior, then are we still going?" As the top elder of the spirit beast clan, the ghost creature obviously had a friendship with Zhu Quebec. However, whether this friendship was good or bad, enemy or friend, only the ghost creature itself knew. "Are we going or not?" Hearing this, the ghost creature half laughed at itself and half explained, "Let me tell you this. If it was in its heyday in the past, Zhu Ke would have to call me Big Brother. But if we are discovered in this state, it will definitely find a way to make my soul fly away. Of course, you will also be burned to ashes." Chapter 45-21. After all, this was the territory of the spirit beasts, which was also the territory of the Vermilion Bird. It didn't even need to do anything to kill a human cultivator like Lin Yi. Not only would the ghost be of no help, it would also die even faster if it dared to show itself. "No. It's too late to retreat now, the Vermilion Bird has already discovered you." The ghost stopped him in a deep voice. "Ah." Lin Yi was shocked. With his current strength, he would definitely die if he was targeted by the Vermilion Bird. Since you were scanned by its divine sense just now, it's impossible for the vermilion bird not to know that you're here. The ghost's words made Lin Yi feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. However, the next sentence made him heave a sigh of relief. But you don't have to be too alarmed. When it scanned you with its divine sense just now, I deliberately disguised a trace of the aura of a spirit beast on your head. So, you should try to hide your own aura as much as possible. In this way, to outsiders, you'll look like a spirit beast in human form. If nothing goes wrong, you should be able to get away with it. Oh, that's not too bad. Lin Yi nodded with lingering fear. He couldn't guarantee anything else, but if it was just about hiding his own aura, if he claimed to be the second strongest in the world, no one could be the first in the world. But don't be too happy too early. Even if the vermilion bird didn't notice anything strange just now, it's impossible for you to retreat now. The ghost sighed. Why? Lin Yi's heart tightened again. There are so many spirit beasts gathered in front of us. It's obvious that all the spirit beasts in this area have been gathered there. According to my speculation, the vermilion bird is holding a spirit beast conference. In principle, all the spirit beasts in the core area must be present. If you weren't discovered just now, it'd be fine. But if you retreat now, it'd be too suspicious. The ghost smiled bitterly. So I can only brace myself and move forward. Senior, are you sure it'll be okay? Lin Yi suddenly felt helpless. He knew that the vermilion bird was holding a spirit beast conference in front of him, but he still dared to move forward. Wasn't this the same as hanging himself? Was he tired of living? Lin Yi had always been bold, but he wasn't stupid. He would be crazy if he jumped into the frying pan even though he knew it was dangerous. There should be no problem. The ghostly thing couldn't be too sure. After all, no matter how one looked at it, this matter was very risky. However, it still comforted Lin Yi. With your ability to conceal your aura and the spirit beast aura that I've disguised on your body, as long as they don't try to distinguish it, even if you're face to face with the vermilion bird, they won't be able to tell anything. All right. Lin Yi nodded with a bitter smile. He knew what the ghostly thing was trying to say. As long as no one was targeting him, everything would be fine. However, if he was targeted by a spiritual beast expert, especially if the vermilion bird noticed that something was amiss, then everything would be over. However, since things had developed to this point, there was no other way out. He could only bite the bullet and do as the ghost said. Kid, you don't have to worry too much. Other than some races with special talents or spirit beasts that don't like human form, many spiritual beasts with a little bit of intelligence can transform into human form. Many spirit beasts with a little bit of intelligence can take on a human form after reaching the heavenly Tao, so even if you go there now, you won't attract too much attention. The ghostly thing continued to comfort him. Don't worry, Senior. Although this is a little dangerous, it's not a big deal. Although it's a little dangerous, I can still take it. Lin Yi let out a long breath. He was not a person who was afraid of things. Moreover, it was useless to be afraid now that things had come to a head. The more panicked he was, the easier it would be for him to reveal his flaws. Only by dealing with it calmly could he have a chance to get away with it. Well, that's good. However, just to be safe, you'd better wear the 1,000 silk mask. You'd better wear the 1,000 thread mask. That rough martial appearance is more in line with the aesthetics of spirit beasts. Most spirit beasts have a similar temperament after transforming into human form. Your current appearance is too delicate, and it's easy to attract attention, the ghostly thing warned again. All right. Lin Yi nodded, took out the 1,000 silk mask and put it on. At the same time, he complained in his heart about the strange aesthetic of the spiritual beasts. He had been cultivating for so long, but this was the first time someone said he looked delicate. Everything was ready. After Lin Yi calmed his mind and held his breath, he immediately walked forward. The ghost released the aura of a spiritual beast at the right time. This was not the aura of the ghost itself, but it was deliberately disguised. Its strength was only equivalent to that of a spiritual beast at the gold core stage. It was better to be careful. If the ghost directly released its own aura, even if he deliberately suppressed the strength, it would still be very dangerous. Other spiritual beasts might not be able to recognize it for a while, but the old enemy of the vermilion bird would definitely be able to detect it in an instant. That would be the real disaster. Along the way, after about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Lin Yi finally sensed the aura of a large group of powerful spiritual beasts. Judging from their position, they were not far ahead. From a distance, he could hear some strange cheering and jumping sounds. Sometimes there were hoo-hoo-ha and sometimes there were hoo-hoo. Ordinary people could not understand what this meant, but it sounded very lively. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi continued to brace himself and walked forward. After a short while, the original lush, primitive jungle suddenly opened up. As far as the eye could see, there was an extremely empty field. There were no dense shrubs, no giant trees, no swamps or deep pools. It was just a green grassland. As Lin Yi and the ghost expected, there were indeed many spiritual beasts gathered here. There were 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Many of them had transformed into human forms, and many of them maintained their original forms. All of them were speaking in human language, laughing and cheering. If he had suddenly seen this scene in the secular world, Lin Yi would definitely have cried out involuntarily. This was simply a group of demons dancing. Even though he was already mentally prepared, when he saw so many spiritual beasts at once, and each of them had a strong and extraordinary aura, Lin Yi could not help but be a little dumbfounded. The spiritual beasts he had seen in his life could not even compare to 1% of the spiritual beasts here. At this moment, in the middle of the empty field, there was a group of spiritual beasts in human forms singing and dancing. It seemed that they were performing something. The other spiritual beasts in the field were watching with relish and cheering from time to time. However, in the eyes of Lin Yi, this was simply like a primitive tribe. He really could not see what was so beautiful about that strange dance. Chapter 45-22. I've finally seen the legendary Spirit Beast clan today. Is this the Spiritual Beast Convention that you mentioned, Senior? Lin Yi secretly asked the ghost. Just a little on the top, said Little Bitch. You can say that. The ghost's breathing became more hurried and it said in a complicated tone, this can't be considered a complete spiritual beast convention because the spirit beasts from several regions haven't arrived yet. However, the scale of this convention is no small matter. All the spirit beasts nearby have been summoned. It seems that the vermilion bird is really ambitious and is preparing to become the regent. The vermilion bird? Which one is the vermilion bird? Lin Yi looked at the high platform in surprise. Because he wasn't in his original form, he couldn't determine which one it was even though he knew that the vermilion bird was on the platform. He subconsciously looked at the center of the high platform. At this moment, there was a mysterious man wearing a bamboo hat sitting in that seat. It was unknown what he looked like, nor what kind of spirit beast he was. All he knew was that his bamboo hat was made from a variety of colorful feathers, and he was the most conspicuous person present. Moreover, the person sitting in the center seat was undoubtedly the most important person, and it should be the vermilion bird. After all, according to the logic of most people, even though the vermilion bird was a top-rate elder of the spirit beast clan, it was still a bird at the end of the day, so it was very normal and logical for it to like wearing a body of gorgeous feathers. Not that one, the ghost knew what Lin Yi was thinking and pointed out, the one on the left of the man in the bamboo hat is the vermilion bird. Lin Yi looked again, noticing that in the seats closest to the man in the hat, there were 2 weird-looking old men sitting on the left and right of the man in the hat. The one on the left had a face as red as blood, and his eyebrows were furrowed, giving off an intimidating aura. Although he was just sitting there calmly, his entire body seemed to be shrouded in raging flames, making people not dare to look him in the eye. It felt like they would be burned to ashes if they got too close. Although his appearance was rather strange, the vermilion bird's aura was not too surprising. Nonetheless, the vermilion bird's true appearance and aura were not too surprising. At least, to Lin Yi, it was worthy of its status as a top-notch elder among the spirit beasts. At first glance, one could tell that the vermilion bird was like a god among the clouds and would not be regarded as an ordinary spirit beast. Then who's that man in the middle and the one on his right? Lin Yi couldn't help but ask curiously. Putting aside the mysterious bamboo hat man, even the old man standing to his right was as strange and eye-catching as the vermilion bird. He had a green face and sharp fangs, and his eyes were a dazzling gold. The terrifying aura he exuded was not much weaker than the vermilion bird's. That mysterious bamboo hat man. Looks like he's the new spirit beast monarch that the vermilion bird found. I wonder what kind of spirit beast he is, the ghostly thing sighed. In order to search for the bloodline of the spirit beast monarch in the secular world, it had fallen to such a miserable state. It would be a lie to say that it didn't have any doubts about this new spirit beast monarch. After all, the vermilion bird's reputation had never been very good. Furthermore, there were far too many dramas of the vermilion bird using the emperor as a hostage. If it wasn't for his current state, the ghostly thing would definitely go up and personally examine the quality of this new spirit beast monarch. If it discovered that the bloodline was fake, it would be the first to attack the vermilion bird. However, what could it do? The ghostly thing silently paused for a moment before speaking in a deep voice. As for the one on the right, I don't know him either. Could he be a newly promoted elder of the vermilion bird monarch? From the fact that this person was able to stand side by side with the vermilion bird monarch, it was clear that this person's status was extremely high. It was very likely that he was also an elder. However, this ghostly thing had more or less interacted with the elders of the spirit beast clan. However, it had never seen such an existence before. This was a completely unfamiliar face. The ghostly thing couldn't help but fall into deep thought from the strange scene today. From the strange scene today, it could already smell something unusual. All the signs indicated that this spirit beast clan was no longer the spirit beast clan that it was familiar with. The ghostly thing's heart was filled with a myriad of emotions. However, Lin Yi did not think too much about it. He only quietly blended in with the crowd. Oh, no, to be more precise, he should be in the herd of spirit beasts. To him, it did not matter what happened to the spirit beast clan as long as his human identity was not discovered. What made Lin Yi feel rather gratified was that the surrounding powerful spirit beasts had all their attention focused on the high platform and the group of dancing spirit beasts in the middle. From the beginning to the end, none of them had even glanced at him. Even if the spirit beasts next to him had occasionally noticed him, their gazes would only pass for a brief moment. After all, Lin Yi's body was only emitting the aura of a golden core spirit beast. In the eyes of everyone present, this insignificant level of strength could only be considered as an existence at the bottom. No one would waste their time to pay attention to such a weakling, let alone strike up a conversation with him. If this was any other occasion where killing was allowed, it would make sense for him to be eaten by the spirit beasts as a snack. No matter what, it seemed like the ghostly thing's disguise was a success. If there were no accidents, it should be able to get away with this successfully. Amidst the heaven-shaking cheers, the human-shaped spirit beasts in the middle finally finished their dance and dispersed into the herd of spirit beasts. All of the spirit beasts present then turned their attention to the high platform. That was just the opening dance. The next part of the show was the most important part. As expected, once all of the spirit beasts' attention had been shifted to the high platform, the vermilion bird immediately laughed and took a step forward, leaving the so-called new spirit beast king and the other elders behind. Looking at its high-spirited appearance, those who did not know better would have thought that it was the spirit beast king. Very good, I'm very happy to see all of the spirit beast brothers from Enluo Cultivation City gathered here to pay respects to our new king. As the vermilion bird spoke, a scorching wave of air enveloped the entire place with every move it made. Not only did it show its overwhelming power, it also made the already enthusiastic atmosphere even more hot-blooded. As soon as the vermilion bird finished speaking, the entire place was filled with cheers. All of the spirit beasts, regardless of whether they were in human or beast forms, knelt on the ground in unison, shouting, "Long live the king," as they prostrated themselves on the ground. These were all unruly and powerful spirit beasts. If any one of them were to be released, they would probably cause chaos in the South Continent Sea. Lin Yi initially thought that based on their temperament, even if they would obey the so-called new spirit beast king, it would at most be a formality. He did not expect them to be willing to prostrate themselves on the ground. Such a scene of prostrating oneself on the ground was rare even in the strictly ordered human sections. It was evident that the spirit beast clan was not as disunited as most people thought. Chapter 45-23. They might not be disciplined at all, but they absolutely followed the natural law that the strong ruled. As long as the king of the spiritual beasts and the top-notch elders were powerful enough, the cohesion of the spiritual beasts would not be weaker than that of human cultivators. In fact, they might even be more powerful. This was because unlike human cultivators who harbored ulterior motives and plotted against each other, these spiritual beasts were much purer by nature. Since they had chosen to obey, they would sincerely obey before they had the power to launch a counterattack. They would not pretend to agree but oppose in secret. Anluwa Cultivation City? While Lin Yi was pretending, he could not help but mutter in confusion. He asked the ghost thing in private, "Senior, what do you mean? The South Island is not like the human territory where there are no complicated divisions such as cities and towns. The entire South Island is divided into 5 areas, and the core of each area is a cultivation city. Anluwa District is one of the 5 areas, and it's located near the Dark Devil Sea area of the South Island." The ghost thing explained to Lin Yi. "I see." Lin Yi suddenly thought of Audwa Cultivation City in Lufeng Forest. Although it was now abandoned as a relic, it should have been a large area of the South Island before it was abandoned. However, after it was completely abandoned, there were fewer and fewer spiritual beasts. Instead, it gradually became a place for human cultivators to explore. According to the order of the previous king of spiritual beasts, each cultivation city will be guarded by a top-notch elder. Basically, it can be seen as the top-notch elder's sphere of influence. The ghost thing continued. Initially, it did not want to tell Lin Yi about the spiritual beasts. However, this time, it wanted to let Lin Yi know more about the inside story. After all, he was in the South Island now. It had to let Lin Yi know what kind of situation he was in at the very least. "So, there are a total of 5 top-notch elders in the spiritual beasts?" Lin Yi asked. "No, there are always only 4 top-notch elders." The ghost thing paused and explained, "The other 4 cultivation cities have their own top-notch elders, but Anluwa Cultivation City is different. Because of the existence of the 4 Seas Escort Agency, the Dark Devil Sea area has always been the center of the South Island, so it's the same for Anluwa Cultivation City. There's no need for any elders here because the king of spiritual beasts is here." Lin Yi nodded. Anluwa Cultivation City was personally overseen by the Spirit Beast King, and the 4 top-notch elders could be considered as high-ranking officials, each of them guarding a region for the Spirit Beast King. Such an arrangement could not be said to be simple and crude. Nonetheless, it was in line with the Spirit Beast's straightforward style. "When the Spirit Beast King isn't around, won't Anluwa Cultivation City be ownerless?" Lin Yi asked. "A country can't live without a king, and a city can't live without a master." There was a long period of time between the disappearance of the former king of spirit beasts. As the center of the South Island, Anluwa Cultivation City couldn't be in a state of chaos all the time. That won't be the case. Ever since the disappearance of the previous Spirit Beast King, the 4 elders decided to take turns to guard the Spirit Beast King. However, as time went on, everyone began to harbor their own schemes to replace him. In the end, it became more and more intense. Seeing that they were about to fall apart and even kill each other, I proposed to go to the secular world to look for the bloodline of the Spirit Beast King. You know what happened next. The ghost thing sighed. "Well, this is actually normal. There will only be so-called loyalty under the deterrence of absolute power. Human cultivators are all like this. Naturally, the spirit beasts are no exception. Lin Yi nodded and sighed. While Lin Yi communicated with the ghost things secretly, Vermilion Bird looked at all the spirit beasts present who had surrendered. She laughed with satisfaction and said, "Brothers of spirit beasts, the king is still very young now. It's not enough for him to lead the spirit beast clan by himself. As his subordinates, we can't force him. At least, we have to give the king space to grow. Therefore, the king has decided to let me and Elder Azure Dragon work together to manage the affairs." Before the Vermilion Bird could finish speaking, the strange old man with a green face and long fangs stepped forward and nodded at the spirit beasts present. He was obviously the Elder Azure Dragon that the Vermilion Bird was referring to. As for the so-called new spirit beast king, he had not made a single sound since the beginning. Everything was being controlled by the Vermilion Bird. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that he was a puppet through and through. What? Elder Azure Dragon? Lin Yi did not have much of a reaction. However, after the ghost thing heard this, its already rapid breathing became even more unstable. Lin Yi could clearly sense a monstrous rage from it. Ever since he met the ghost thing, he had never seen it so irritated. "What's wrong, Senior?" Lin Yi quickly asked. "Azure Dragon." Azure Dragon, this bastard has promoted a new Elder Azure Dragon?" The ghost thing gnashed its teeth in anger. If it was at its peak, Lin Yi had no doubt that it would have rushed forward and stepped on the Vermilion Bird Elder. "What do you mean?" Lin Yi was confused. There were a total of 4 top-notch elders. Since there was a Vermilion Bird Elder, then there was also a Azure Dragon Elder, right? Because I am Elder Azure Dragon." The ghost thing roared. Lin Yi was shocked speechless. This was the first time he knew the ghost thing's true identity. No wonder it was so agitated and angry. It turned out that this was the original Elder Azure Dragon. It was obvious that the person standing on the stage was the Vermilion Bird's newly promoted wing. This was actually not difficult to understand. When the ghost thing descended into the secular world as one of the 4 great elders, no one would dare to do anything to it for a short period of time. However, after disappearing for a long time, its position as a top-notch elder naturally became a fat piece of meat in the eyes of others. It was normal for it to be replaced. "Senior, don't be too angry. Since it dared to change the position of the king of spirit beasts, how could it change the position of an elder?" Lin Yi could only comfort it with a wry smile. The ghost thing was silent for a long time. Its rapid breathing gradually calmed down. With a hint of relief and helplessness, it said, "You're right. I've disappeared for so long, it's normal for a new elder to replace me. It seems that the Vermilion Bird has indeed taken control of the overall situation of the Spirit Beast clan. It's really not easy. Aren't there other top-notch elders? Are they just going to let the Vermilion Bird act so presumptuously?" Lin Yi asked curiously. There are 5 major cultivation cities on the South Island. The Vermilion Bird has its own city, this new Elder Azure Dragon has his own city, and this Onlua cultivation city, which nominally belongs to the King of Spirit Beasts. A total of 3 cities have fallen into the Vermilion Bird's control. The other 2 elders don't agree with it, so it can't go against them. Moreover, this guy is now in a righteous position. He can use the Emperor to order the feudal vassals, Chapter 45-24. The Vermilion Bird occupied 3 out of the 5 great cultivation cities. Furthermore, the Vermilion Bird controlled the Emperor and commanded the feudal vassals. This familiar situation reminded Lin Yi of Cao Cao during the 3 Kingdoms period. He was also extremely powerful. As for whether or not the other 2 elders could stop the Vermilion Bird, it would depend on whether or not they had the qualifications to become Sun Quan and Liu Bei. "Senior, don't be impatient. A little impatience will spoil a great plan. Our current strength is insufficient. Even if we jump out, we won't be able to stop the Vermilion Bird. However, one day, we will definitely get justice. Lin Yi said in a determined tone. He wasn't just trying to comfort the ghostly thing. He truly had this thought. With his relationship with the ghostly thing, he couldn't just stand by and watch. Lin Yi believed that one day, he would have enough strength to intervene in the affairs of the Spirit Beast clan. When that time comes, he would make the vermilion bird spit out everything that the ghostly thing had taken from him. You little brat. The ghostly thing couldn't help but laugh. Its originally gloomy mood was greatly relieved. It laughed and scolded, "Do you think I'm a brainless idiot? How could I not understand this logic? But to be honest, with my original personality, I really didn't know how to endure. However, now that I've been with you every day, I've learned it. You've taught me several lessons. You're overpraising me, senior." Lin Yi scratched his head, a little embarrassed. There's no need to be humble. I'm really not flattering you. The ghostly thing laughed and sighed with deep emotion. Patience is the most important thing. Once you have enough strength, you will strike with lightning speed. Originally, your strength was far greater than yours, but they were all trampled to death by you one after another. However, they were trampled to death by you one after another. I realized that only by becoming like you can one be truly ruthless. Pfft. Lin Yi almost spat out his saliva. Fortunately, he forcefully held it back and the other spirit beasts around him didn't notice anything strange. With a strange expression, he said, "Cough cough. Senior, are you praising me or insulting me?" "Of course I'm praising you. There aren't many people who can do this. Although cultivators are known to cultivate their body and mind, most of them don't have a high spiritual realm. There are many who are brave and ruthless, and there are many who are impulsive. Many people fight for a moment of pride. They would rather die than stand up for themselves, but you are different. If you can't beat them, you'll run. That's why you're still alive today." The ghostly thing sighed. "All right, take it as a compliment." Lin Yi rubbed his nose and asked, "Senior, why did you say that? Are you not planning to reveal your identity? Isn't that obvious? Look at this situation, the vermilion bird's words are the law from top to bottom. If I dare to show my face now, not only will my soul be destroyed, you'll also die with me." The ghostly thing curled its lips. "That's true." Lin Yi nodded. That was exactly what he was thinking. He was just afraid that the ghostly thing would be unable to control its anger for a while. Since the ghostly thing was able to control itself, that was for the best. "All right. This time, I've gathered everyone here because I have an important matter regarding our Spirit Beast clan to discuss with all of you. I'll let Elder Azure Dragon explain it to everyone in detail." The vermilion bird gave Azure Dragon a meaningful look. Subsequently, it returned to its seat and handed the right to speak to the newly appointed Azure Dragon Elder. Azure Dragon cleared his throat, which had a strange metallic quality to it. He faced all the spirit beasts present and said, "Spirit Beast brothers, according to the king's decree, the South Continent has always been the territory of our Spirit Beast clan. But now, human cultivators were everywhere in the South Continent's sea region. In fact, they've even taken over the dominant position." Why? Of course, the South Continent that he was referring to did not only include the Southern Island, but also all of the South Continent sea areas such as the Devil Lang, Jinduan, Wei Qian, and Distant Star. The Southern Island and the huge sea areas nearby were the complete South Continent. That's right, why? All the spirit beasts present were instantly stirred up. Although the Spirit Beast clan and the human sects had reached a tacit agreement not to invade each other, and there had been no major turmoil all these years, in reality, the confrontation between the spirit beasts and human cultivators had always existed. In various parts of the 5 heavenly islands, they had always been killing each other. Human cultivators coveted the various materials on the spirit beasts, while the spirit beasts, in turn, treated the humans as the best delicacies. It could be said that a large number of human cultivators and various spirit beasts died in each other's hands every day. However, These casualties were considered normal natural competitions and were far from the level of war, so everyone turned a blind eye to it. Therefore, the South Continent, which was the base camp of the Spirit Beast clan, still had a large number of human cultivators living in the surrounding sea areas, and they had always lived in harmony with each other. However, now that Azure Dragon had said this balance would probably be thrown into disarray. Not only that, these shameless human cultivators not only openly occupied the South Continent sea area that belongs to the Spirit Beast clan, they even had the guts to sneak into our South Island's territory for this so-called adventure, steal our treasures, and kill our fellow spirit beasts. Everyone, do you think we can tolerate this? Azure Dragon deliberately stirred up the crowd's emotions. We can't tolerate it. We can't tolerate it. We can't tolerate it. The spirit beasts present were even more enraged. That's right, the South Continent is the territory of the Spirit Beast clan. Only the Spirit Beast clan is the sole overlord of the South Continent. We can't tolerate this. Azure Dragon nodded in satisfaction. He made a hand gesture to calm the crowd of spirit beasts down, then continued, I also heard that the spirit beasts scattered in the other heavenly islands are often killed wantonly by human cultivators because they are alone and because those places are the humans' territory. Some of them are even taken as spirit pets for the humans to order around. Everyone, don't you think this is a great humiliation for the Spirit Beast clan? Humiliation. 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 All the spirit beasts present had their necks flushed red and their eyes were bloodshot. It was as if they were going to eat someone at any time. Lin Yi, who was among them, could not help but feel his scalp go numb when he saw the scene of tens of thousands of beasts roaring. He was shocked speechless. If they continued to incite the crowd, a war between the Spirit Beast clan and human cultivators would be inevitable. What were the Vermilion Bird and Azure Dragon trying to do? Were they really going to start a war? What are these two bastards thinking? The ghost creature was also frowning. If the Spirit Beast clan's power could be gathered together, they would be much more powerful than any human sect. However, there were not just a few human sects, there were hundreds and thousands of human sections. If a full-scale war were to start, the Spirit Beast clan was destined to end up in one end, death without a burial place. Chapter 45-25. After all, even the previous spiritual beast king, who was so powerful and invincible, did not dare to start an all-out war with human cultivators. In the end, they reached a tacit understanding of not interfering with each other's business. How could a mere vermilion bird have such guts and ambition? How dare the humans bully us and humiliate the spiritual beast clan? My fellow spiritual beast brothers, what do you think we should do? The Azure Dragon instigated them openly. Damn it, humans, an eye for an eye. Yes, yes, let the humans pay the price. The spiritual beast clan cannot be cowards. Kill. 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 A shocking murderous aura suddenly erupted from the bodies of the spiritual beasts. Even the weather was affected. The weather suddenly changed. The originally clear sky was now covered with dark clouds, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. The deliberate instigation had completely aroused the monstrous rage of the spiritual beasts present. Powerful spiritual beasts were wild and untamed to begin with. In their eyes, human cultivators were merely food. Now that they had suddenly realized that they, the dignified spiritual beast clan, had been bullied by humans to this extent, how could they continue to compromise for the sake of the general interest? Everyone, be quiet. Seeing that it had achieved its effect, the Azure Dragon gestured for the spiritual beasts to quieten down again. It said in a deep voice, the price of starting a war is too high. We can't take this step unless it's absolutely necessary. However, according to the king's decree, even if the spiritual beast clan does not start a war with the shameless humans, we must at least control our own territory. The South Continent belongs to the spiritual beast clan. We will not allow the humans to come and go as they please. Lin Yi and the ghost were shocked. Judging from the Azure Dragon's tone, Could it be that he wanted to expel all the humans in the South Continent's waters and even kill them all? If that was really the case, although it was not as serious as starting a full-scale war, it was definitely not a small matter. If the process was not handled properly, it could develop into an unmanageable situation. The two of them were secretly shocked, but the agitated, powerful spirit beasts did not have such concerns. Other than a few of them who were more cautious, most of them were warmongers, and they could not wait for an all-out war. If the higher-ups wanted to exterminate the humans in the South Continent Sea, they would definitely support it with both hands and feet. Therefore, in accordance with the king's decree, Elder Vermilion Bird and I have discussed and decided that we will send castellans and administrative departments to all the main cities in the sea regions of the South Continent. They will be responsible for collecting taxes from the various sea regions of the South Continent. From now on, all human cultivators who come to the South Continent to live and travel must pay taxes to the Spirit Beast clan. The Azure Dragon took advantage of the situation and announced loudly, "Tax." Lin Yi and the ghost were stunned at the same time, and they could not help but have strange expressions on their faces. It turned out that the Vermilion Bird and the new Azure Dragon did not want to start a war, but wanted to use this excuse to amass a fortune. Among all the sea regions in the South Continent, the Cold Devil Sea region is the most prosperous and stable sea region, and it's located closer to Onlua Cultivation City. Therefore, Elder Vermilion Bird and I have discussed and decided that this sea region with the richest profits will be handed over to the Spirit Beast brothers here. The king needs you to maintain law and order, and he needs you to collect taxes on his behalf. Are you willing? The Azure Dragon tempted them. Yes. The group of spirit beasts immediately responded in unison. They danced in joy and jumped in excitement. The king is wise, the shameless humans should have paid tribute to the king long ago. We're willing to serve the king, and we guarantee that we'll complete the task. Although the human sects were powerful, in the South Continent Sea region alone, all the human cultivators were no match for the spirit beasts even if they gathered together. A few powerful spirit beasts would be enough to suppress all the human cultivators in the South Continent Sea region. There was no doubt about this. Therefore, as soon as the order was given, the fate of the human cultivators in the South Continent Sea region was sealed. Faced with a colossus like the spirit beasts, they had no power to resist at all. Anyone who disobeyed would be crushed into pieces. To the spirit beasts, this was a business that cost nothing at all. There was a naturally juicy piece of meat hanging in front of them, and as long as the higher-ups gave the order, they could swallow it at any time. Listening to the rising and falling voices, the Azure Dragon and the Vermilion Bird looked at each other and smiled. This was a plan that they had arranged a long time ago. Collecting taxes was only the first step in their plan. Judging from the reaction at the scene, this crucial first step had obviously succeeded. As I expected, the Vermilion Bird is an ambitious fellow who doesn't know how to behave. He has just taken control of the spirit beast's power, and he's already starting to amass wealth wantonly. This bastard is too greedy. If we let him do as he pleases, I'm afraid the spirit beasts will not be able to escape. Sigh. The ghost sighed helplessly. Lin Yi nodded in agreement. Collecting taxes from the human cultivators in the South Continent Sea region sounded reasonable and understandable. This was because the South Continent Sea region was attached to the South Island. In theory, it was indeed the territory of the spirit beasts. They even had to pay rent to rent a house, let alone so many human cultivators living in the South Continent Sea region. However, the problem was that human cultivators had not just come to the South Continent Sea region in the past 1 or 2 years. Instead, they had been stationed here for thousands of years. Their understanding of the South Continent Sea region was even better than that of the spirit beasts. In terms of time span alone, it would not be an exaggeration to say that they were the masters of the South Continent Sea region. For thousands of years, although the human cultivators in the South Continent Sea region and the spirit beasts in the South Island's boundary were only a short distance apart, they had always lived in harmony. Now, this rule had been broken because of the Vermilion Bird's selfishness. Could the human cultivators in the South Continent Sea region be convinced? As the saying goes, every man for himself. For the sake of worldly possessions like the spiritual jades, many people would even lay their hands on their own brothers. No one would hand over the spiritual jades in their hands. Even if the human sex came over to collect taxes by force, it was impossible for the South Continent Sea region to not be in turmoil, let alone the spirit beasts who were on opposing sides. Once they suddenly started collecting taxes, it could be foreseen that a fierce battle would be unavoidable. Even if the human cultivators in the South Continent Sea region were no match for the spirit beasts, there would always be people who could not help but rise in revolt if they really had no way out. With the spirit beasts' overwhelming strength, it was more than enough to crush the human cultivators in the South Continent Sea region to death. However, it was unknown whether the vermilion bird and the azure dragon had thought that a single spark could start a prairie fire. Once this kind of thing started burning in the South Continent Sea region, it would be impossible to extinguish it in the South Continent Sea region. In the end, it was inevitable that the human cultivators from the other Heaven Stage Islands would be involved. Chapter 45-26. For example, if the Spirit Beast clan forced the Hong Chamber of Commerce's branch to pay taxes, would the headquarters of the Hong Chamber of Commerce not react at all? Even if the Hong Chamber of Commerce was not so hot-tempered as to start a war directly, what about the other major forces whose interests would be affected? There were ambitious people like the Vermilion Bird and the Azure Dragon among the Spirit Beast clan. Similarly, there were many such people among the human cultivators, perhaps even more than the Spirit Beast clan. Please be prepared. Perhaps they had been eyeing the Spirit Beast clan for a long time, but they had not been able to find a suitable excuse. Now that the Spirit Beast clan had taken the initiative to hand over their weakness, how could they let it go? If the human cultivators really started a war with the Spirit Beast clan, it would inevitably be a waste of manpower and resources. The powerful ones could make a fortune from the war, while the weaker ones could at least flee far away. In the end, the truly unlucky ones would always be the ordinary people who had not advanced to the heavenly Tao or built their foundation. The world was difficult, and the strong preyed on the weak. This was the eternal and unchanging law of nature. If one did not have enough strength to protect oneself, no matter what happened, the final outcome would always be extremely miserable. However, this had nothing to do with Lin Yi for the time being. Lin Yi had always been protective and would often see injustice, but he was never the kind of person who took responsibility for the world. To Lin Yi, as long as it didn't affect the people around him, it didn't matter even if the spirit beasts and human practitioners started a war. He wouldn't be so righteous as to stop this war. It would be fine if he was strong enough, but he didn't have that strength right now. There was no point in saying anything. Let's go. The ghostly thing sighed and suddenly said after a moment of silence. Not going to watch anymore? Lin Yi could not help but be slightly stunned. It was normal for him to stay out of this because he was an unrelated outsider after all. Not only did he have nothing to do with the Spirit Beast clan, but even the human cultivators might not be his original camp. He came from the secular world, and the cultivators on the heavenly island had never acknowledged people like him. However, the ghostly thing was different. This was the former Azure Dragon elder of the Spirit Beast clan. Even if he could let go of the Spirit Beast clan, he definitely could not let go of it. Now, the Spirit Beast clan was about to be pushed into an abyss by the Vermilion Bird. How could he just turn around and leave so easily? I already know the Vermilion Bird's intentions. What's the point of staying here? Since it's useless anyway, why should I stay here and spoil my mood? The ghostly thing laughed bitterly and said, besides, their attention is on the stage now. This is the best time for you to escape unscathed. Otherwise, you'll be in danger when everyone leaves. Could it be that I've been discovered? Lin Yi's heart suddenly tightened. This kind of thing was not a joke. In that case, the best course of action was to leave. He couldn't stay for a moment longer. Not necessarily, but have you forgotten where this place is? Even you human cultivators, who claim to be civilized, are constantly killing each other, let alone the spirit beasts. The ghost laughed bitterly and continued, don't be fooled by the fact that so many spirit beasts can live in harmony now. That's because there are beings like the vermilion bird above them. However, once they leave the public sight, they will devour each other repeatedly. In their eyes, you're just a golden core stage snack. Any spirit beast could devour you for a meal. That's true. Lin Yi shrunk his neck in fear. He was so worried that his identity as a human would be exposed that he almost forgot about this threat. Spirit beasts would never truly live in harmony with each other. Even if he was treated as a spirit beast, he would still be in danger. Taking advantage of the fact that all the spirit beasts were unable to extricate themselves from the Azure Dragon's incitement and were all cheering at the high stage, Lin Yi immediately began to retreat stealthily. If he was occasionally seen by a spirit beast next to him, he would stop and pretend to shout along with them. Furthermore, he was originally standing at a very outer position, so the entire retreat process was rather smooth. However, just as he was about to retreat into the dense forest and leave smoothly in the next moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. A cold voice suddenly exploded from the high stage. "Who's so bold as to leave without permission when I, the elder, am making an announcement?" As soon as the voice finished speaking, all the spirit beasts present focused their attention on the vermilion bird. Then, they followed the vermilion bird's gaze and shifted to the top of Lin Yi's head. Suddenly becoming the center of attention, Lin Yi could not help but feel his scalp go numb. His back was instantly drenched in cold sweat. If this was a human public event, even if there were many experts, he would not feel so pressured. However, the problem was that this was the spiritual beast convention. Being stared at by so many powerful spirit beasts made him feel like a lamb that had mistakenly entered a wolf's den. At the very least, Lin Yi could still maintain his composure on the surface. If it was someone with an average mental fortitude, they would have been so frightened that they would have collapsed on the spot. Not only Lin Yi, but even the ghost could not help but break into a cold sweat for him. At the same time, he could not help but feel a little regretful. His decision to quickly escape before the end of the convention was not wrong. However, he had never considered that the vermilion bird was actually using its divine sense to monitor the entire venue. After all, even for a primordial soul grandmaster like the ghost, using its divine sense to monitor the entire venue was definitely not a small burden. He never thought that the vermilion bird would not hesitate to waste so much energy in order to completely control the spiritual beast convention. It was no wonder that Lin Yi had been detected by the vermilion bird's divine sense before he even arrived here. It turned out that this guy had been monitoring every corner of the venue. The vermilion bird shot a cold gaze at Lin Yi. He was just about to take over the Azure Dragon's words and appoint a governor of the Demon Leng city in front of everyone. However, he did not expect this brat to turn around and leave at this time. Wasn't it obvious that he was not taking a top-notch elder like him seriously? Under the watchful eyes of so many powerful spirit beasts, Lin Yi could not help but feel a chill in his heart. He suppressed the nervousness in his heart and carefully turned around, saying, in reply to Elder Vermilion Bird, "This lowly one is only going to relieve himself. I did not leave the venue without permission. Please understand, Elder." In response to Lin Yi's quick-witted answer, the crowd of spirit beasts revealed a look of understanding. As the saying goes, humans have 3 urgent needs. Naturally, spirit beasts were no exception. Since he was going to relieve himself, he naturally had to find a secluded place. This was a logical answer. Although spirit beasts were not as particular as humans, and it was not a problem for them to relieve themselves in public under normal circumstances, it was clearly inappropriate for them to do so in this situation. Moreover, most of the spirit beasts present had transformed into their human forms. It was somewhat shameful for them to do such a thing in public. Like a book, the home of reading books. Unique website. Chapter 45-27. However, even though the spirit beasts present did not care about Lin Yi's words, the vermilion bird, a top-notch elder, would not be fooled so easily. Today's spirit beast convention was directly related to the vermilion bird's grand ambitions, so it could not afford to make any mistakes. Even if there was only the slightest hidden danger, it had to be nipped in the bud. What's more, before this, it had already spoken to the higher-ups of all the big and small families in Enluo Cultivation City. It had strict requirements for the venue's discipline, and it clearly remembered that this golden core brat was already late. Now he wanted to leave early? This was simply outrageous. Convenient? The vermilion bird narrowed its long and narrow eyes and snorted in an unfriendly tone. Humph. Which clan does this spirit beast belong to? Clan elders, step forward. Similar to human cities, the spirit beast forces in a cultivation city were also based on clans, such as the Big Fire Lion clan and the Big Spider clan. Every spirit beast clan naturally had a clan leader, elders, and other higher-ups. For a top-notch elder like the vermilion bird, as long as it controlled the higher-ups of the clan, it could control all the spirit beast forces, or even the entire spirit beast clan. Because of the difference in their clans, under normal circumstances, it was obvious which spirit beast belonged to which clan. However, if a spirit beast transformed into a human, it would be difficult to identify its original form. This had nothing to do with strength. Unless they were familiar with each other, even the vermilion bird would not be able to identify it. As soon as the vermilion bird finished speaking, not a single spirit beast stepped forward to respond. Lin Yi was a human cultivator who had come to fish in troubled waters. It would be strange if a spirit beast stepped forward. Seeing that the atmosphere had fallen into an awkward stalemate, Lin Yi knew that something was going to happen if this went on, so he quickly replied, "Elder Vermilion Bird, I don't live in Enluo City. I just happened to pass by, so I came to join the convention. My hometown is actually Lufeng Forest." Lufeng Forest was the only place that Lin Yi was relatively familiar with. Because it was an abandoned area, it was on the outskirts of the Spirit Beast clan. As the leader of the Spirit Beast clan, the Vermilion Bird would not care about a country bumpkin who came from such a place. Since there were so many spirit beasts present, there must not be any acquaintances from Lufeng Forest. What? Lufeng Forest? The Vermilion Bird raised her eyebrows upon hearing this, but then her tone became even more unfathomable. How is that possible? How did a mere gold core stage cultivator manage to travel such a long distance? What exactly do you do? At the same time, all the spirit beasts present looked at Lin Yi with suspicion. The South Island was different from the human society. In the human society, as long as one didn't make trouble, even if he was only in the gold core stage, he could go to many places. But it was different here. Every spirit beast had a deep-rooted sense of territory. Under normal circumstances, if a weak spirit beast dared to cross a powerful spirit beast's territory, it would usually end up being eaten. This was a matter of course among the spirit beasts, so nobody would interfere. Therefore, in the eyes of any spiritual beast, it was simply impossible for a golden core stage spiritual beast to traverse all the way from Lufeng Forest to here. Looking at the suspicious expressions of the spirit beasts, Lin Yi's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He subconsciously used the humans' thinking just now, but he forgot that although many of the spirit beasts could transform into humans, they were fundamentally different from humans. I think he's a spy who was bribed by a human cultivator. Left and right, take him down. Azure Dragon, who was next to him, immediately ordered. Yes. The guards that were guarding the area shot up into the air. Even Lin Yi couldn't help but jump in fright when he felt the terrifying aura coming from the guards. The momentum of these spirit beast guards was even more majestic and vast than that of the giants in the mountain opening stage. The insufferably powerful evil cultivator giant elder sect of West Mountain couldn't even compare with these guards. This was simply incredible. It was even more ferocious and horrible than the mountain opening stage. What realm was this? At this moment, Lin Yi's heart was in turmoil. The mountain opening stage was already the highest realm he had ever seen, but he didn't expect it to be an eye-opener in the territory of the spirit beasts. A few random guards that jumped out were already stronger than the mountain opening stage, not to mention the high and mighty top-notch existences like the Vermilion Bird and Azure Dragon. Wasn't the spirit beasts too ridiculously strong? It was only at this moment that Lin Yi finally realized that the spirit beasts had been able to compete with human cultivators for a long time. This was not without reason. It was no wonder that the vermilion bird was so ambitious to amass wealth wantonly. No matter who controlled such a frighteningly huge force, they would most likely be as confident as the vermilion bird, or even more unscrupulous. As mentioned before, the strength of the spirit beasts was far above any human sect. In the past, Lin Yi more or less had a trace of prejudice against the spirit beasts. He always felt that without the strong deterrence of the former king of the spirit beasts had fallen apart day by day. But now it seemed that even though the overall strength of the spirit beasts was not as strong and invincible as before, it still couldn't be underestimated. If an all-out war really broke out, human cultivators would definitely pay a huge price. Even if they could laugh until the end, it would probably be a Pyrrhic victory. In an instant, a myriad of thoughts ran through his mind, but this was not the time for Lin Yi to be in a daze. With his strength, he couldn't even face the elder sect of West Mountain, let alone facing these terrifying spirit beasts that were superior to the elder sect of West Mountain. Lin Yi knew that this time, he was probably really finished. Once he was caught, his identity as a human would inevitably be exposed in front of the various means of these powerful spirit beasts. When that time came, it was easy to imagine what would happen to him. Even death would probably be an extravagant hope. Once a person was unlucky, even drinking water would be difficult. Lin Yi felt that this was his current state. There was always a piece of bad luck lingering on top of his head. It was not easy to get rid of the elder sect of West Mountain, but in the blink of an eye, he had encountered these even more ruthless existences. While Lin Yi was feeling helpless, the ghost was tangled and hesitating. In this kind of situation, it was impossible for Lin Yi to escape unscathed. The only way to have a chance was to stand up in front of everyone. As the former elder of the Azure Dragon clan, the ghost believed that it should have some influence in the Spirit Beast clan, especially in a public place like the Spirit Beast Convention. Even the vermilion bird might not dare to do anything to it. If it stood up for Lin Yi, the pressure would naturally shift from Lin Yi to it. Of course, the premise was that it had the strength to do so. But now, what if the vermilion bird didn't buy it? R1152. Chapter 45-28. Now that everything was under the control of the vermilion bird, it would not be a big deal to kill a ghost like him in public. Moreover, the new Azure Dragon had appeared. It would be strange if the vermilion bird would let the former Azure Dragon live. Perhaps once the ghost stood up, Lin Yi would die even faster. When had the ghost ever regretted it before? Even when it was reduced to this miserable state because of its death in the secular world, even when the vermilion bird took advantage of the situation and took the position of Azure Dragon Elder, it had never regretted it. However, now that it was related to Lin Yi, it could not help but feel a little remorseful. If it had not been for the fact that it wanted to know what had happened to the spirit beasts, it would not have continued to advance to the core hinterland of the tranquil area after successfully scaring off the West Mountain Elder. It should have immediately found an exit to escape from the dangerous South Island. In that case, Lin Yi would not have ended up in this near-death situation. It could be said that if Lin Yi died here today, it would be because of the ghost. Although the ghost had always been unruly and free, it was often very protective of its own people. In its eyes, Lin Yi was already one of its own, but now it had caused him to die. It would be strange if it did not blame itself and feel remorseful. Senior, life and death are decreed by fate. If it wasn't for you, I would have been captured by the West Mountain Elder and made into a puppet. Besides, I wanted to come to this place, so you don't have to blame yourself. Lin Yi, of course, could guess what the ghost was thinking and immediately comforted it with a smile. Boy, you're really open-minded. The ghost could not help but look at Lin Yi again. For a moment it was a little nervous and lost, but now it had disappeared and it was as calm as usual. This boy was really a person who was born for big occasions. Influenced by Lin Yi, the ghost quickly regained its composure. It could be said that it had also accepted that it would fight to the death at most. It had not been defeated in the secular world and had been tenaciously holding on until now. Now it had returned to the territory of the spirit beasts. Could it admit defeat and admit defeat? Lin Yi and the ghostly thing were no longer nervous, but the fatal crisis was still right in front of them. It was true that they were unafraid of death, but it didn't mean that they wouldn't die just because they had this awareness. The terrifying coercion of several spirit beast guards fell on the top of Lin Yi's head at the same time. Before they did anything, the grass under Lin Yi's feet suddenly sank a lot. Everything visible within 3 meters was instantly squashed, and the grass and stones were crushed into dust that was hard to be seen by the naked eye. This was the terrifying coercion that was above the giants of the mountain opening period. Back at the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, the divine nun of the East Sea had used her aura alone to kill the late golden core Qing. But now, Lin Yi was facing the same danger as Qing, and the pressure was much stronger. After all, this was an existence that was above the giants of the mountain opening period, and it was even a few spirit beast guards attacking together. If it was any master of the golden core stage, even if it was an evil cultivator like Qing Haonan who suppressed his strength, if he was in Lin Yi's current position, he would definitely die. Even if he didn't die on the spot, he would at least be seriously injured. However, Lin Yi didn't say a word, and he forcefully resisted this inhuman powerful oppression. This kid is tough enough. The group of spirit beasts, who originally disdained a small character like Lin Yi, praised him in their hearts. They knew the strength of the spiritual beast guards clearly. Even if it was them, it would be difficult for them to withstand it. They didn't expect that this kid with only the strength of the golden core stage could actually withstand it. However, the group of spirit beasts looking up to him wouldn't change Lin Yi's fate. What could he do even if he was tough? Those who angered Elder Vermilion Bird would still die in the end. Moreover, this kid's answer was indeed very suspicious, so it was reasonable to kill him. Seeing that the 2 top elders, Vermilion Bird and Azure Dragon, were indifferent. Several spiritual beast guards suddenly understood that they would rather kill the wrong person than let him go. Although the possibility of this golden core stage kid being a human spy was slim, the matter announced today was of great importance. If the news was leaked in advance, it would easily cause trouble, so they had to guard against it. Since Vermilion Bird and Azure Dragon both meant this, the spiritual beast guards naturally wouldn't disobey their immediate superiors for Lin Yi who they didn't know. They immediately revealed a strong killing intent, and they wanted to obliterate Lin Yi. The shadow of death enveloped Lin Yi's whole body. His blood was instantly solidified, and he couldn't move. In the face of such an enemy, with Lin Yi's current strength, let alone resisting and escaping, he couldn't even move. When facing the West Mountain Elder, he could still use the extreme butterfly microstep to fight, but now it was simply an extravagant hope. He could only wait for death. I'm not willing. No one would be willing to die here inexplicably, and Lin Yi was no exception. However, the disparity in strength between them was so great. What else could he do but wait for death? Seeing that he was about to die, a hoarse voice suddenly came from the high platform, causing several spiritual beast guards to stop their movements. Let him go. I think he seems to be a member of the Big Fire Lion clan. He does live in the Lufeng forest. Today is such a good day. It's not auspicious to kill your compatriots. Let's get back to business. Don't waste everyone's time on irrelevant trifles. The person who spoke was the spiritual beast king who hadn't spoken. As the new spiritual beast king, he was theoretically the absolute protagonist of the spiritual beast clan. However, from just now until now, this spiritual beast king could be said to have no sense of existence at all. The focus and the right to speak were in the hands of Vermilion Bird and Azure Dragon. He was like a puppet. However, it was such a puppet that suddenly spoke at this time and was ready to pardon Lin Yi. This was really beyond the expectations of all the spiritual beasts present. Vermilion Bird and Azure Dragon were stunned. Even Lin Yi and the ghostly thing were stunned. They did not know this new spirit beast king at all. In fact, they even suspected that he was a fake and did not possess the bloodline of the spirit beast king at all. He was merely a fake that the Vermilion Bird had found to deceive them. However, they did not think that such a suspicious fellow would suddenly open his mouth to help them. Just what kind of situation was this? Yes. Vermilion Bird was the first to react. An obscure haze flashed across her long and narrow phoenix eyes, but she appeared respectful on the surface. As the king commands, you can all leave. Chapter 45-29. Lin Yi let out a long sigh of relief and reached out to wipe the beads of sweat off his forehead. If the Vermilion Bird had stayed for a while longer, he would have been crushed into a pile of minced meat by the Vermilion Bird's coercion. This time, he had truly escaped death from the gates of hell. Kid, hurry up and thank the king. Otherwise, based on your suspicious identity, you will certainly die today. The Vermilion Bird glared coldly at Lin Yi with an obvious hint of anger in its eyes. The Vermilion Bird was furious not because of Lin Yi, a nobody like him, but because of the fact that the spiritual beast king had dared to go against it in public. After all, this so-called new spiritual beast king was a puppet that the Vermilion Bird had single-handedly groomed. He must act according to the Vermilion Bird's will at all times and on all occasions. Previously, he had behaved himself, but today, he had suddenly interfered with the Vermilion Bird's orders. It could even be said that he had publicly slapped the Vermilion Bird in the face. Was he trying to rebel? However, what angered the Vermilion Bird even more was the fact that although it could order the new spiritual beast king around in private, it could not do so in public. Since the new spiritual beast king has been crowned, everyone in the spiritual beast clan, including the Vermilion Bird elder, must bow down to the new spiritual beast king and must not show the slightest bit of disobedience. Even though the Vermilion Bird was holding the emperor in order to command the nobles, it must still be done on the surface. Everyone was well aware of the situation, but it could not be exposed in public. Otherwise, this so-called emperor would lose his legitimacy, and the so-called emperor in order to command the nobles would naturally be out of the question. Therefore, even though it was furious, the Vermilion Bird had no choice but to endure under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Not only did it have to endure, it also had to support the spiritual beast king more than any other spiritual beast. It was not allowed to hesitate at all. When the spiritual beast king speaks in public, the other spiritual beasts may have some room for doubt. However, only the Vermilion Bird must treat it as the king's order and carry it out to the letter. Otherwise, it would become a laughing stock. After all, the Vermilion Bird had single-handedly supported its master. If it did not take it seriously, how could it expect anyone else to take it seriously? Of course, once the spiritual beast convention is over and the Vermilion Bird closes its doors, it does not matter how it plans to teach the spiritual beast king a lesson. It would all depend on the Vermilion Bird's mood. Thank you, my king. Lin Yi quickly bowed and cupped his fists. At the same time, he took the opportunity to take a good look at the noble being who was shrouded in the rainbow-colored bamboo hat. He was pondering the same question as all the spirit beasts present. Why did this guy suddenly speak up to help him out of this predicament? Others might not have noticed it, but the other party had intentionally mentioned the Great Fire Lion tribe. Could it be that he was referring to something else? Although Lin Yi wasn't a great flame lion, it was one of the only two species among all the spirit beasts that had a close relationship with him. If there wasn't any evidence, how could the other party be so sure that he was a member of the Great Flame Lion clan? Lin Yi was completely confused. However, it was obvious that no one would clear his doubts on such an occasion. The mysterious new spiritual beast king fell silent after he had finished speaking. No one knew what it was thinking, and because it was covered by the rainbow-colored bamboo hat, even its expression and eyes could not be seen. It gave people a feeling of mystery. It was mysterious. If this had been any other time and occasion, Lin Yi would have wanted to find out more about the new spiritual beast king. Perhaps he would be able to gain some unexpected gains. However, that was no longer possible now. He could not stay in such a troublesome place for long. Before the Vermilion Bird and the other spirit beasts regretted their decision, he quickly turned around and left. He watched helplessly as Lin Yi's figure disappeared into the dense forest. On the other hand, the other spirit beasts did not react much, but the Vermilion Bird's face could not help but turn gloomier. It simply could not understand why the puppet king, which it supported, would suddenly interfere in this matter. No matter how it looked at it, this was simply an insignificant matter. To any of the spiritual beasts present, killing a mere gold core stage cultivator was not a big deal at all, not to mention the high and mighty king of spiritual beasts. For such an insignificant character, what was the point of the king of spiritual beasts specifically speaking out and even going against the azure dragon himself in front of everyone? Ever since it was raised to the position, this king could be said to be tactful. It had always listened to the vermilion bird's words and basically never spoke. Even if it occasionally spoke, it would definitely follow the script that the vermilion bird had given in advance. Therefore, the vermilion bird had always been very satisfied with this. However, the vermilion bird also knew that no matter who was in the high and mighty position of the spiritual beast king, once it had tasted the taste of power, it would never be willing to be a puppet that it could manipulate. At a certain time, there would always be various kinds of disobedient attempts and actions. This was inevitable. The vermilion bird was already mentally prepared for this. However, in its opinion, even if the puppet king wanted to get rid of its control, it would definitely choose to speak out on some important matters. After all, only then would it have the opportunity to promote the authority of the spiritual beast king. But now, this was an insignificant matter. Why should it interfere? Even if the vermilion bird had to make a concession in front of the public, as the spiritual beast king, what benefits could it get? Perhaps only the gold core stage spirit beast that was released would be grateful to it, but this kind of small character was not even qualified to be cannon fodder. Even if it was roped in, what use would it have? The azure dragon turned its head and looked at the vermilion bird. It was also bewildered. Avoiding the eyes and ears of all the spirit beasts present, it immediately connected its divine sense to the vermilion bird. It pointed at the spiritual beast king and said, "What is this guy trying to do? Could it be that he wants to take advantage of this spiritual beast convention to make his presence known in front of everyone and let everyone think that he, the king, is caring for his people and wants to win people's hearts? Isn't he a little too naive? Benevolent policies may work on humans, but in the spiritual beast clan, which held strength in high esteem, it was not feasible at all. If one's strength was not enough, regardless of whether the spiritual beast king was benevolent or not, those powerful spirit beasts would have already bitten him and he would not even be able to keep his life. Chapter 45-30. The vermilion bird suddenly felt that the puppet king that it had found was not as simple as it thought. This fellow's schemes were much deeper than it had expected. Unspecified currency, however, even though it had seen through the other party's intentions, the vermilion bird could not disobey the order in public for such a small matter. After all, it was in public and the other party was the absolute ruler of the spiritual beast clan. The vermilion bird could not lose the bigger picture because of a small matter. As a matter of fact, if one were to think about it carefully, they would realize that the puppet king's move seemed meaningless and inexplicably useless, but it was actually a trick that had its own meaning. If the vermilion bird chose to tolerate it in public, it would give the other party room to take a yard after taking an inch. In other words, it would give the other party the capital to negotiate with the vermilion bird. In order to prevent the other party from meddling in the crucial issues in the future, the vermilion bird had to make a certain degree of concession. It had no other choice. If the vermilion bird chose to disobey the order in public, the problem would be even more serious. Even if it and the azure dragon joined forces to control most of the forces of the spiritual beast clan, one should not forget that there were still two other top-notch elders eyeing them covetously. They were both ambitious and powerful characters. They did not dare to act rashly now, but once they caught hold of the vermilion bird's weakness, they would definitely not hesitate to use the banner of purging the emperor. That would be a headache. Thinking of this, even the vermilion bird could not help but be secretly shocked and broke out in cold sweat. It was clearly just a seemingly meaningless impromptu move. In the end, it did not expect such a deep scheme to be hidden behind it. It was really a little scary. The vermilion bird could not help but take a deep look at the spiritual beast king under the colorful bamboo hat. It hoped that it was thinking too much. Otherwise, it was afraid that there would be endless troubles in the future. The vermilion bird and the azure dragon were secretly on guard, but the spiritual beast king was as calm as water. It did not have the slightest intention of interfering with the appointment of the governor of Demonling City. It just sat there quietly with its face mask facing the direction where Lin Yi had left. No one knew what it was thinking. After leaving the venue of the Spirit Beast Convention calmly, Lin Yi immediately went all out without any hesitation. He risked his life to use the extreme butterfly subtle steps that he had yet to master. His figure turned into a ghost that shuttled through the dense forest, quickly distancing himself from the large group of extremely terrifying spirit beasts. Even though he was pardoned by the spiritual beast king, Lin Yi knew that he did not have the chance to dawdle. His excuse of leaving was to find a place to relieve himself. Naturally, he could not drag it out for too long. If he did, the spiritual beasts would definitely notice that something was wrong and he would not be able to escape. But even so, Lin Yi's actions were actually very risky, because the vermilion bird had been using its divine sense to monitor the entire scene. Once it sensed that Lin Yi was rapidly escaping, the consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, the vermilion bird was now wholeheartedly pondering how to deal with the king of spiritual beasts. For a short period of time, it wouldn't continue to monitor the entire area with its divine sense. Moreover, an insignificant character like Lin Yi wasn't within the scope of its attention. Thus, it wouldn't deliberately search for Lin Yi's position. Even if he ran away, it would only think that he was afraid and didn't dare to come back. This continued for a full incense stick of time. At least 100 miles away from the spiritual beast convention, Lin Yi's heart, which was suspended in the air, calmed down a little. He let out a long breath with lingering fear. This time, he really escaped from death. It was purely a fluke. But even so, Lin Yi did not dare to stop completely. Instead, he used the super butterfly subtle steps to continue running. He didn't know whether the vermilion bird had locked onto him or not. He also didn't know how far the vermilion bird's divine sense could cover. To be on the safe side, of course, it was better to escape as far as possible. As for not continuing to use the super butterfly subtle steps, this was something that couldn't be helped. This kind of state of extreme stimulation was destined to pay a great price. If it continued for a little longer, a large number of cells in the body would immediately die of overwork. That was an act of self-harm. Even though Lin Yi had the ability to heal himself, he didn't dare to mess around like this. Good steel should be used where it mattered most. He could only use the super butterfly subtle steps when it was necessary. Normally, it was better to maintain the super butterfly subtle steps. Anyway, this speed was already very fast. While running away, Lin Yi exclaimed in his heart, "I didn't know that this new spiritual beast king is really a good person. Oh no, a good spiritual beast." When he was suppressed by the pressure of the spiritual beast guards just now, he didn't move at all, as if he wouldn't change his expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. In fact, how could that really be the case? Just now, his heart almost exploded from fear. If he had been a second late, he would have died without a burial place. It was really too fucking thrilling. That new spiritual beast king is a little strange. Could it be that you know him? At this moment, the ghost was also puzzled. This time, even he felt that he would definitely die. He didn't expect that he would survive the disaster, and in this way, it was really puzzling. Pfft. Lin Yi almost choked. With a strange expression, he said, "Senior, even you, the former Green Dragon Elder, don't know him. I'm just a human cultivator who came from the secular world. How could I know the spiritual beast king?" That's true. The ghost also thought that it was quite impossible, but the doubt in its heart still lingered. But if it doesn't know him at all, what did it mean just now? And it said that he's from the Great Fire Lion clan in Lufeng Forest. Could it be pure guesswork? It doesn't make sense. In its position, there's no reason for it to come out and save you. That I don't know. Maybe it's really guesswork. I mentioned Lufeng Forest, and there really aren't many spiritual beasts in Lufeng Forest now. In the whole clan, there are probably only great fire lions and big spiders there. It's not completely impossible to guess. Lin Yi thought for a while, then said, besides, even if it knows me, it can't recognize me like this, right? I'm still wearing the 1,000 silk mask. It's true that you're wearing a mask, but you've only changed your appearance. Your body and voice haven't changed at all. You might be able to fool strangers, but it's impossible for you to fool people with your true intentions, the ghostly thing denied. That doesn't make sense. I've never had any interaction with this new spiritual beast king. It has never seen me before, and I've never seen it before. I don't even know what kind of spiritual beast it is. Lin Yi shook his head, then his eyes suddenly lit up. If we really have any interaction, it's more likely to be you, senior. Could it have sensed your aura? Chapter 45-31. Then he realized that the king of spirit beasts seemed to help Lin Yi out of trouble, but in fact, it was also helping him out of trouble. In any case, it was more likely that the ghost thing had an intersection with the new king of spirit beasts. Maybe it had really sensed it. Plus or minus, what was more, at the spirit beast conference just now, the spirit beast's breath on Lin Yi was disguised by the ghost thing. Although ordinary spirit beasts were unlikely to see through this trick, it might be possible for the king of spirit beasts. Even if it was just a puppet king hired by Vermilion Bird to deceive people, it should have some skills. The new king of spirit beasts sensed the ghost thing's breath, and then suspected that Lin Yi was the ghost thing's man, or even the ghost thing itself, so it suddenly helped Lin Yi out of trouble. This was probably the most reasonable explanation. As for why the king of spirit beasts did this, it was the same as what Vermilion Bird and Azure Dragon were worried about. The new king of spirit beasts might not be willing to be a puppet manipulated by others. In any case, it was very lucky to escape successfully. After being scared, not only did Lin Yi not dare to stay in the South Island for a long time, but even the ghost thing, which had originally wanted to walk around, was forced to give up the idea. This time, it was lucky that the king of spirit beasts helped it out of trouble, but if it had to do it again, it would really die without knowing how it died. Therefore, the ghost thing did not dare to take it lightly. After escaping, it instructed Lin Yi to find a way to escape from the South Island, and Lin Yi obviously had no objection to it. It was true that the South Island was a natural treasure house for human practitioners. If there was a chance to adventure here, there should be a lot of unexpected gains, but the premise was that one must have the strength to do so. With Lin Yi's current strength, he could be regarded as a top master in the South Sea, but he was nothing in the South Island. If he did not have the consciousness of sacrificing himself to be the food of spirit beasts, it was better to think less about treasures of heaven and earth. The more he thought about it, the faster he would die. The more he thought about it, the faster he would die. There was only one thing on Lin Yi's mind now, and that was to escape from the South Island as soon as possible. However, he came in through the dark cold sea's turbulent whirlpool this time, so it was impossible for him to go back the way he came, because it was only a one-way passage. Even the West Mountain Elder Master couldn't go against the current, let alone Lin Yi. The ghost had pointed Lin Yi to another exit that was closer to the verdant arc waters. It was not a whirlpool, but a teleportation array. However, if Lin Yi wanted to reach the exit teleportation array, he would have to cross at least 2 large cultivation city districts. One could imagine how dangerous it would be. Because of the Spirit Beast Convention, passing through the settlement area was not a big problem. After all, the slightly stronger spirit beasts had already been summoned by the Vermilion Bird. The remaining spirit beasts were only at the gold core stage or even weaker. Moreover, they were generally not aggressive. The only reason for these weak spirit beasts to exist here was to become the food of those powerful spirit beasts. Naturally, they could not pose any threat to Lin Yi. However, after leaving the settlement area, Lin Yi would be in trouble. Next, he would have to face the spirit beasts. They were all powerful existences above the nascent soul stage. The Spirit Beast clan was a gathering of masters. In this area alone, there were many who were comparable to the masters of the profound ascending stage. Some dangerous places even had mountain opening stage giants. If Lin Yi dared to step into their sphere of influence, he would definitely die. Fortunately, with the ghost's constant guidance, he could always avoid those existences that he couldn't afford to provoke. Otherwise, if it was just Lin Yi alone, even if he had 100 lives, he would have to suffocate to death in this South Island. Not to mention him, even the West Mountain Elder Master, the evil cultivator giant. They had been tossing and turning in the South Island for more than a month. They had gone around the gates of hell several times before they finally stumbled and escaped from death. Switching back and forth between the Super Butterfly Micro Steps and the Extreme Butterfly Micro Steps, Lin Yi's whole person turned into a ghost, shuttling quickly in the vast jungle of the South Island, and it took him a whole month to do so. The South Island was vast and the forest was so big that people who had not experienced it personally could never imagine it. In this month, Lin Yi had been moving at high speed from beginning to end, except for the most basic rest time. Especially when he used the Extreme Butterfly Micro Steps, his speed was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. Even so, he could barely cross 2 areas. Of course, he couldn't keep walking in a straight line in the jungle. He had to avoid special terrains such as rivers, mountains, and swamps in advance. According to the ghost, any of these places had an owner. The spirit beasts that could occupy these places were far from what Lin Yi could provoke now. At the same time, Lin Yi also had to avoid the places covered by the miasma. Although he could avoid being eroded by the miasma with his true chi, the problem was that the miasma would greatly affect his perception. In a place like the South Island, once his perception was limited and he continued to wander around, he would die no matter how many lives he had. In addition, he naturally had to try his best to avoid the gathering places of those spirit beasts. If he was only discovered by 1 or 2 spirit beasts, as long as their strength was not too strong, Lin Yi could always escape with his speed. However, if he provoked a large group of spirit beasts, not to mention Lin Yi, even the West Mountain Elder Master couldn't fight his way out of the encirclement. Super fast speed, the ghost's guidance, in addition to the third crucial condition, Lin Yi could finally successfully escape from the South Island, and that was the spirit beast's aura disguised by the ghost. All spirit beasts were extremely sensitive to human cultivators' auras. In fact, they were even more sensitive than sharks in the sea when it came to the smell of blood. Even though Lin Yi was very good at hiding his aura, hiding was different from camouflage. There would always be an unnatural sense of abruptness. Human beings might not be able to detect it, but the extremely sensitive spirit beasts could always see through it. It was impossible for Lin Yi to cross the 2 areas without leaving any flaws. In this case, Lin Yi was basically like a light bulb in the dark in the forest of the South Island. It was impossible for him not to attract attention. Fortunately, the spirit beast's aura disguised by the ghost perfectly solved this flaw. Lin Yi would only be able to make it through the 2 zones if he had all 3 of them at the same time. He wouldn't be able to escape if he didn't have any of them, since he wasn't as strong as the West Mountain Elder. If it was really the last resort, the West Mountain Elder Master could use his strength to make up for it, but Lin Yi would only end up in one way, which was to wait for death. Therefore, there was no room for error in him at all. One mistake would lead to death. Chapter 45-32. Fortunately, the worst-case scenario didn't happen. After a whole month of tension, Lin Yi finally made it to the exit transmission array. But even so, he was still in a mess and even injured. Crossing 2 whole areas, no matter how careful Lin Yi was, there were still a lot of powerful spirit beasts encountered on the way. Fortunately, most of them ignored Lin Yi. First, Lin Yi had a ghostly disguised spirit beast aura on his body. For those powerful spirit beasts, a human gold core stage master was a delicious dish, but a gold core stage spirit beast was only enough to fill the gap between their teeth. Second, the speed that Lin Yi showed was really extraordinary. Even if those powerful spirit beasts saw him, they were too lazy to chase. A spirit beast like Lin Yi was definitely the most unwelcome prey. A small character in the gold core stage was not even an appetizer in the eyes of those powerful spirit beasts. But he ran very fast. Not to mention whether they could catch up. Even if they could catch up, it would take a lot of effort. The consumption in the process alone could not be made up for even eating 10 Lin Yi. It was absolutely not worth the loss. So, although the aura on Lin Yi's body was weak, there were really not many spirit beasts that really attacked him. Even if he was occasionally unlucky, the other party often tried a little bit. When they saw that it was not easy to catch up, they simply did not chase. However, walking in the dark for a long time, there would always be times when you would see a ghost. In this month, although most of the time it was smooth, there were a few times when it was really dangerous. The degree of danger, even if it was not as dangerous as the pursuit of the West Mountain Old Sect, was definitely not much worse. Every time, Lin Yi used all his trump cards and risked his life to barely escape. Being injured was still a small matter. To be able to smoothly reach the exit transmission array, and at the same time to not break his arms and legs, Lin Yi could be said to be blessed. In this month, there was endless sadness and frustration. Lin Yi was so shocked that he lost a lot of weight. Looking back at the path he had taken, he felt like crying tears of bitterness. Back then, when Tang Seng and his disciple went to the West on a pilgrimage for Buddhist scriptures, they were probably no better than this, right? In theory, the physical strength of a cultivator at the gold core stage was already at a monstrous level. However, they could not withstand a whole month of running for their lives. Not only was it a huge test of endurance, but at the same time, they had to be constantly on guard against sneak attacks from spirit beasts. If it was an ordinary person, they would have long been driven crazy. Even a cultivator of a higher level would not be able to withstand it. However, not only had Lin Yi persevered, but he had also treated all of this as a rare opportunity to cultivate. Pressure was motivation. It was not easy to find so many powerful spiritual beasts to supervise one's cultivation. Of course, it wasn't realistic to directly break through, but once one's body and will reach the limit, they could become more pure and powerful. This was without a doubt. At the same time, Lin Yi had completely mastered the extreme butterfly subtle steps after a month of hard training. The corresponding super physical technique and extreme physical technique had also become more handy. This was at least equivalent to half a year of hard training. Not only that, now even Lin Yi's temperament had faintly changed compared to a month ago. Although he was still calm and restrained, his bones were more tenacious. However, his bones were even more tenacious and indomitable, like a pine tree deeply rooted in a boulder. On the surface, there didn't seem to be any difference, but his roots had already expanded from 100 feet to 200 feet. Or even more. The deeper the root, the more stable the foundation, which meant that the foundation was more abundant. The gains he'd made this month were far more valuable than a breakthrough on the surface. He'd been forced to run for his life, but from a certain perspective, he'd gained quite a lot this time. There was an empty space in front of him without any spirit beasts guarding it. There was a teleportation formation not far ahead, which was similar to the teleportation formation that he had seen in Lufeng Forest. This situation made Lin Yi feel relieved. If this teleportation formation was heavily guarded by the spirit beasts, it would really be fucked. Fortunately, the situation was much better than expected. While there was no one around, Lin Yi quickly walked into the teleportation formation. Unlike the teleportation formation in Lufeng Forest, that teleportation formation could be activated with a token. However, this teleportation formation obviously didn't have a token, and it required ready-made spirit jades. In principle, each activation of the teleportation formation required a large amount of heaven and earth spirit. Although basically every teleportation formation was designed with a formation that could collect the surrounding heaven and earth spirit to maintain the normal operation of the teleportation formation, it could only ensure that the teleportation formation didn't break down. It was obviously unrealistic to use it to satisfy frequent teleportation. Therefore, every time before using the teleportation formation, high-quality spirit jades had to be added to the core of the teleportation formation. At the very least, it needed a few hundred, and at the very most, it needed thousands of spirit jades. This depended on how exquisite the teleportation formation was and how far it could be teleported. But this teleportation formation required a total of 3,600 spirit jades to be activated. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel lucky that he had the space in his jade pendant. If someone else saw this requirement, they would be dumbfounded. It wasn't that they couldn't afford this amount of spirit jades. The problem was, who would have so much time on their hands and run around with so many ready-made spirit jades? Even if they had brought them with them in the beginning, they would have definitely thrown them away when they were running for their lives. Now, they could only watch helplessly. If they wanted to cry, they would have no tears. There were originally spirit jades in the core of the teleportation formation, but they had no spiritual chi. Obviously, they had been used. Lin Yi moved these waste jades into the space in his jade pendant. At the same time, he replaced them with 3,600 spirit jades and put them in. Then he quickly stood in the teleportation position and the teleportation began. Lin Yi had experienced the teleportation process more than once or twice. However, every time he experienced it, he always had an inexplicable feeling. It was like a talented primary school student facing obscure and difficult mathematics questions. Although he couldn't understand them at once, after seeing them many times, he would unconsciously understand them in his own way. Every time, he could make a little progress. Maybe one day, he would be able to understand all of them. The whole teleportation process was extremely short. After a blink of an eye, Lin Yi had already appeared in a new place. Naturally, under his feet was the teleportation formation. In front of him was still the symbolic dense forest of the South Island. However, the scene behind him was really a bit scary. It was a huge swamp. In a primitive place like the South Island, swamps were not strange. During the previous month's escape, Lin Yi had seen them many times. Even earlier, he had to rely on the swamp to get rid of the pursuit of the old master of West Mountain. However, it was the first time for Lin Yi to see such a terrifying swamp behind him. Chapter 45-33. The other swamps were uniformly black, but the swamp behind him was colorful. From a distance, it looked like a natural dye vat. The point was that this was not an ordinary dye vat, but a boiling dye vat that was bubbling with steam that could distort space. Smelling the strange smell that made people feel dizzy, Lin Yi could not help but frown. Before he was teleported, he thought that this place would be shrouded in miasma, but there was no miasma. Instead, it was a strange swamp. "Senior, what is this place?" Lin Yi covered his nose and asked curiously. There must be something wrong with this abnormal situation. He had been suffering from sequelae for the past month, so he was much more vigilant than before. His intuition told him that there must be something wrong with this swamp. "This is the 5-poison swamp," the ghost answered. "Poisonous?" Lin Yi was slightly stunned. It was normal for this swamp to be so poisonous. However, Lin Yi not only noticed this appearance, but also a more critical feature. But the spiritual chi in this place seems to be very abundant. Hideous and ugly was his first impression of this 5-poison swamp. However, if he looked closely, he would find that the density of the spiritual chi in this place was simply outrageous. Although there were many places with abundant spiritual chi on Heaven Stage Island, it was extremely rare to see such a density. At least, Lin Yi had never seen it in a natural environment. Almost every bubble that bubbled out of the swamp contained extremely rich spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Of course, it was not just spiritual chi of heaven and earth, but also some other poisonous gases. Otherwise, it would not live up to the name of the 5-poison swamp. Well, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth here is indeed abundant. Looking at the whole South Island, there are only a few places with a higher concentration of spiritual chi than here. If this place was not so dangerous, there would be a lot of spirit beasts coming here to freeload the spiritual chi. Maybe they would even fight to occupy this place, and blood would flow like a river, the ghost said. This place is dangerous? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. Although the smell was indeed a little unpleasant, if it was just poison, it shouldn't be enough to make people flinch. Especially since many spirit beasts were talented and even had the innate immunity to poison, they wouldn't be afraid to come here just because of a little poison, right? Jia, kid, don't underestimate this 5-poison swamp. Its poison isn't the kind that ordinary people know of. It's because this swamp naturally contains the power of the 5 elements. Basically, spirit beasts and human cultivators who don't get close to it will be attacked by it. The 5 elements kill each other, and entering it means death. It doesn't matter if you're immune to poison, the ghostly thing explained. I see. Lin Yi finally understood, but he didn't continue to pursue the matter. No matter how rare this 5-poison swamp was, it had nothing to do with him. Now that he had survived a disaster, what he wanted to do the most was to quickly return to the verdant Arc Sea. Then he turned around and went back to North Island. Through this dense forest, you'll reach the verdant Arc Sea. As for how to get to the verdant Arc City, it's up to you, kid. The ghostly thing knew that Lin Yi was eager to return, so it immediately pointed out with a smile. Okay. Lin Yi was immediately overjoyed. Immediately, he stopped looking at the 5-poison swamp and performed the super butterfly micro-step to pass through the dense forest in front of him. As expected, after a short while, he saw the vast sea. Although it was hazy under the sea mist, Lin Yi was in a good mood at this moment. But Lin Yi was in a great mood right now. If it weren't for the fact that he was afraid of attracting the nearby spirit beasts, he would have yelled out loud to relieve the pressure. After all, the pressure in the past month was really great. Fortunately, he finally escaped. According to the ghostly thing, the verdant Arc Sea was in front of him, but after all, Lin Yi was still standing on the cliff of the South Island. There was no way he could get a free ride. No ship dared to get so close to the South Island, not even the overlord of the South Continent's escort agency. Therefore, the only way for Lin Yi to leave here was to go into the sea. Going into the sea was risky. If he was unlucky, he might encounter terrible sea beasts like the Ghost Ray. But compared to what Lin Yi had experienced in the past month, this was nothing at all. Without any hesitation, after a little estimation of the direction, Lin Yi directly wrapped his whole body with genuine qi and jumped into the vast sea. Although it was not realistic to swim directly back to Verdant Arc City, jumping into the sea was the first step to leave the South Island. Only after a certain distance could he have a chance to get a free ride. Others were scared to jump into the sea, but Lin Yi was very calm. As long as he didn't encounter any difficult sea beasts, with his ability, he could stay in the sea for a month. As long as he didn't make a mistake in the direction, he could swim back to Verdant Arc City even if he swam in such a long time. From the time he'd been hunted by the West Mountain Elder to the time he'd mistakenly entered the Soul Beast Conference. Lin Yi's luck had been so bad that he couldn't even get a sip of water to get stuck between his teeth. But now that it had been a month, he wasn't as unlucky anymore. After swimming about 20 miles away from the South Island, Lin Yi found a passenger ship, and the destination was Verdant Arc City. After paying 100 spirit jades, he finally got a free ride. Returning to the Verdant Arc Pier and looking at the familiar scene in front of him, Lin Yi couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He was really lucky to be able to come back alive this time. Now in retrospect, even Lin Yi himself felt a little strange. Being chased by the West Mountain sect, entering the Spirit Beast Convention by mistake, crossing the 2 major areas of the South Island, any one of which would have led to death, but Lin Yi managed to get through all of them. He didn't lose an arm or a leg. It was really sweet after suffering. Other than the fact that there were more people and the docks were busier than before, everything else in Velvet Arc City looked very normal. There weren't any obvious differences from before, and this was something that Lin Yi wasn't expecting. After all, as early as a month ago at the Spirit Beast Convention, Vermilion Bird had already publicly determined the strategy to levy taxes on the various cities in the South Continent Sea area, and even the selection of the city lord had been decided. He didn't expect that a month had passed and no action had been taken. But on second thought, at that time, the settling district was responsible for the Deviling Sea area, and the Vermilion Bird appointed the city lord of Deviling City. Maybe the Deviling City had already taken action, but it hadn't affected the Verdant Arc Sea area yet. In any case, this had little to do with Lin Yi. This was a matter between the Spirit Beast clan and the South Continent Sea area. If there was a large-scale conflict, it was definitely not something that could be solved by one or two people. Not to mention Lin Yi, even the strength of the West Mountain sect was far from enough. Chapter 45-34. They had to be at least as powerful as the entire West Mountain Evil sect in order to have the right to intervene in this matter. However, that was all they had. It was almost impossible for the ambitious Vermilion Bird to stop just like that. This kind of big event, which could easily affect the overall situation of the entire Heaven Stage Island, could only be handled by the big figures of the famous sects after the matter was blown up. With Lin Yi's current strength, he could barely protect himself. Of course, he couldn't get involved in this mess. It was the right thing to do to return to the North Island before it happened. Although everything was normal in the Wayark Sea area, Lin Yi didn't dare to act rashly. The training in the past month had made him much more vigilant. Unless he was sure that nothing would go wrong, he wouldn't appear in public in front of everyone. Even though Wayark City was far less dangerous than the South Island, Lin Yi still clearly remembered that West Mountain Old Sect clearly said that he would come to the Dragon Boat Escort Agency at the South Continent Escort Agency's conference. Before figuring out West Mountain Old Sect's movements, appearing rashly was tantamount to asking for trouble. Because of all the previous legendary deeds, Lin Yi could be regarded as a well-known celebrity in Wayark City. It was estimated that he would attract a large group of people if he stood in any corner. Fortunately, Lin Yi was now wearing the Thousand Silk Mask. In the eyes of ordinary people, he was just a vulgar person from the martial artist path. Naturally, he wouldn't attract attention. After entering the familiar Wayark City, Lin Yi didn't do anything for the whole day. He just found a restaurant, ate something, and rested. At the same time, he pricked up his ears to listen to the discussions of other diners around him. This was also a kind of experience in Jianghu. If you wanted to know what had happened in a place recently, the best way was to sit in the local restaurant for a day. Basically, even the slightest movement of grass in the wind could be known clearly. As expected, almost all of the three most talked about things around him were directly or indirectly related to Lin Yi. One was the various legendary deeds of Lin Yi, and the second was the new hegemon of the South Continent's Equal Escort Agency. The third one was the evil cultivator giant, West Mountain Elder Sect, who was in charge of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. The first two items were just for show, but the last one was extremely valuable to Lin Yi. It was fortunate that he didn't show his face to the public, otherwise once the news of his return got out, with the old sect's unrelenting attitude, they'd be the first to come after him. That'd be troublesome. Lin Yi waited in the restaurant until the sky turned dark before he left. Under the cover of the night, he made his way to the Equal Heaven Escort Agency. Initially, he wanted to enter the agency through the main entrance. However, when he saw a few vendors glancing at him from time to time, Lin Yi immediately gave up on the idea. Instead, he climbed over the wall in the backyard. This was not the night market in the secular world. After dark, there were basically no stalls on the street. After all, this place was chaotic during the day, and it was even more chaotic at night. Those who were not brave would not even dare to stay on the street, let alone set up a stall. At this time, there were only two kinds of vendors who would still stick to their posts. One was that they were really in need of spiritual jades, and the other was that they had ulterior motives. The few people opposite the Equal Heaven Escort Agency were not dressed shabbily. They did not seem to be in dire straits, and it was obvious that they were not in need of spiritual jades. It was obvious that they were the latter. In the entire Velvet Arc City, there was only one force that would be so sneaky as to keep an eye on the Equal Heaven Escort Agency. That was the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. Lin Yi was 80% sure that these spies were placed here to keep an eye on him. Once he appeared, the West Mountain Elders sect would be the first to receive news. He had stayed in the Equal Heaven Escort Agency for a long time. Lin Yi was very familiar with the internal structure of the Equal Heaven Escort Agency. Although it was the overlord of the escort agencies in the South Continent seas, the security of the Equal Heaven Escort Agency was much stronger than before. However, no matter how many people were on duty, they could not stop Lin Yi from sneaking in. After a month of intense training, the heavily guarded Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was practically defenseless to Lin Yi now. There wasn't even a shred of difficulty in the slightest. It was another day of socializing. Qi Wenhan rubbed his head as he staggered back to his room. He reeked of alcohol. He had no choice. Ever since he became the overlord of the South Continent's escort agency, there would be big customers coming to visit him every few days. As the young master of the escort agency, he naturally had to come out and entertain them. Drinking with them was something he couldn't refuse. I have to entertain customers again tomorrow. I have to accompany them all day long. Fuck, I used to be the young master of an escort agency, but now I've almost become a prostitute of the drunken flower brothel. Qi Wenhan sat on the edge of his bed in a daze. He smiled bitterly as he complained. In the past, he had dreamed of becoming the overlord of the escort agency. However, now that his dream had come true, he felt that it was no longer as easy as before. Hee, it looks like Brother Qi is very familiar with the drunken flower brothel. Come, have a cup of spirit tea to relieve your hangover. A figure had appeared at a table not far away from him. He smiled faintly at Qi Wenhan and poured a cup of tea for Qi Wenhan. At the same time, he poured a cup for himself and took a sip in satisfaction. He did not treat himself as an outsider at all. Sure, thanks a lot. Qi Wenhan subconsciously got up and walked toward the table. He only realized after walking halfway. His drunkenness instantly dissipated and turned into a cold sweat. As if facing a formidable enemy, he said warily, "Who's there?" Qi Wenhan immediately sobered up. He could not stop the lingering fear in his heart. He wanted to give himself 2 tight slaps. He did not even know that someone had entered his room. He must have drunk himself into a drunken stupor. Fortunately, the other party did not attack him immediately. Otherwise, even if he had 100 lives, his neck would have been sliced off. What? It's only been a month, and Brother Qi has already forgotten about me? That person turned around with a smile. It was none other than Lin Yi who had snuck in silently. However, this was not his original appearance, and he was still wearing the 1,000 silk mask. Brother Ling? Qi Wenhan was immediately overjoyed when he heard this voice. However, looking at this completely unfamiliar face in front of him, he was suddenly stunned. Looking at his incredulous eyes, it was obvious that he had already guessed Lin Yi's identity. He just did not dare to be 100% sure. Brother Qi need not be suspicious. It is indeed me, Lin Yi. Lin Yi nodded with a smile. Ah. It really is you, Brother Ling? Only then did Qi Wenhan completely confirm Lin Yi's identity. Although his appearance had changed, his voice and figure had not changed. That was enough. Hee, it's been a month since we last met. Brother Qi, how have you been? Lin Yi nodded affirmatively. At the same time, he gave Qi Wenhan a look, indicating that he should not make too much noise. Chapter 45-38, How have you been? Chapter 45-35. Oh, I trust you've been well since we last met. Qi Wenhan looked at Lin Yi excitedly, unable to hide the ecstasy on his face. He suddenly hugged Lin Yi, and although he tried his best to keep his voice low, he could not help but exclaim, "I told you, Brother Ling, you're definitely fine." Ha 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 ha, this is great, this is great. Looking at Qi Wenhan's incoherent and excited expression, Lin Yi could not help but feel moved. He first joined the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency to find a place to stay. Rather than saying that he got along well with Qi Wenhan, it would be more accurate to say that it was because of benefits. However, after experiencing so many trials and tribulations, Lin Yi knew that he had not only gained an ally, but also a brother who treated him with sincerity. This was the most precious thing he had gained from this trip to the southern state. I'm fine. I've made you worry. Lin Yi patted Qi Wenhan's shoulder and laughed. The two then sat opposite each other. Qi Wenhan was excited for a long time, and after a long time, he finally calmed down. Looking at Lin Yi's current appearance, he could not help but ask curiously, "Brother Ling, how did you suddenly become like this?" "In order to deceive people, I deliberately wore a mask. I heard that the West Mountain Elder is now in the Dragon Boat Escort Agency," Lin Yi said. "That's right. They've only been back for a few days. Although they've told everyone that Brother Ling has been buried on the South Island, they still haven't given up on their evil intentions. They've sent a lot of spies outside our escort agency, and I'm guessing that they're here for Brother Ling. It's a good thing that you're wearing a mask. These spies were very annoying. They basically monitored every movement of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency inside and out. However, Qi Mingyuan and he did not dare to say anything about it. If the other party was only the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, these spies would have been caught and killed long ago. However, the other party's backer was the West Mountain Elder. Even though the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's current status was like the sun in the sky, it still could not provoke the Mountain Opening Period Evil Cultivator. If they really provoked the other party into action, there was really no way. The old monster of Shishan Mountain didn't make things difficult for the escort agency, did he? Lin Yi asked. There was nothing for him to worry about, but if the West Mountain Old Master took his anger out on the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, that would be a real problem. Not yet, Qi Wenhan said confidently. He just sent someone to keep an eye on us. He didn't do anything drastic. I think he's worried about the status of our escort agency. Normally, he wouldn't dare do anything to us. That's good. Lin Yi nodded. His reputation as the overlord of the South Continent Escort Agency was not for nothing. Even if the other party was a giant evil cultivator at the opening of the mountain, he would have to think twice before making a move. After all, this influence was not small. If he was not careful, he might attract the attack of the righteous path. As the two of them were talking, the sound of footsteps suddenly came from outside the room. Lin Yi and Qi Wenhan looked at each other and kept quiet at the same time. After all, this was a matter of life and death. The news of Lin Yi's return must not be leaked, even if he was wearing the 1,000 silk mask. He had to make sure that no one else noticed. The footsteps suddenly stopped at the door of the room. Then, a familiar voice sounded, "Wenhan, you're not asleep yet, are you?" "It's my father." Qi Wenhan looked at Lin Yi and asked, "Brother Qi, do you want to see him?" "Of course. I can see the others, but how can I not see Chief Escort Qi?" Lin Yi smiled slightly. His whereabouts needed to be kept a secret from 99% of the people, but he could not leave without even seeing Qi Mingyuan. If that was the case, there would be no need for him to make a trip back to the escort agency. "Okay, I'll call him in." Qi Wenhan nodded excitedly and hurriedly went to open the door. He led Qi Mingyuan in. "Wenhan, I'm going to discuss the alliance with Xiao Shaning tomorrow, so I'll leave the family to you. Make arrangements for the representatives of the Chamber of Commerce. They're all rare customers." Qi Mingyuan was halfway through his sentence when his expression suddenly changed. Only then did he realize that there was a stranger in the room that he had never seen before. Qi Mingyuan couldn't help but stare at Qi Wenhan reproachfully. Why didn't you say so earlier that there was an outsider in the room? What he had just said was confidential and related to the entire South Continent Escort Agency alliance. If it was leaked in advance, it was very likely that there would be unexpected twists and turns, or even a premature death. "Father, this isn't an outsider." Qi Wenhan shrugged and didn't explain further. "Not an outsider?" Qi Mingyuan couldn't help but be stunned. He carefully looked up and down and felt that this person was vaguely familiar. However, he was sure that he had never seen this face before. As the chief escort of the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency, his eyesight was far superior to that of ordinary people. He could only tentatively ask, "I wonder if you..." "Chief Escort, long time no see." Lin Yi smiled slightly. "You are." Hearing this familiar voice, Qi Mingyuan was instantly stunned. He looked at Qi Wenhan beside him in disbelief. It wasn't until he saw Qi Wenhan nod in affirmation that he finally said with surprise and joy, "Young Hero Ling?" "That's right, it's me. I've troubled you all this time, Chief Escort." Lin Yi nodded with a smile. "You're too kind. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Young Hero Ling, it's a joyous occasion for you to be able to return safely." Even Qi Mingyuan, who had always been mature and steady, couldn't hide his excitement at this moment like Qi Wenhan. At the same time, he said with some embarrassment, "The Equal of Heaven Escort Agency's success today is all thanks to you, young Hero Ling. In comparison, we couldn't help at all. We feel ashamed to see you. You're too kind, Chief Escort. I'll always remember everything the agency has done for me. There's no need to say anything unnecessary. We're on the same side, after all." Lin Yi smiled as he glanced at Qi Wenhan beside him. His relationship with Qi Mingyuan could still be considered as a business-like alliance. However, as long as Qi Wenhan was around, he could always maintain his trust. At the end of the day, it was because of Qi Wenhan that Lin Yi was so close to the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency. Compared to the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency, he valued Qi Wenhan more. Birds of a feather flocked together. After all, both of them were passionate people. Young Hero Ling is right. We're on the same side, so I won't waste any more words with young Hero Ling. Qi Mingyuan nodded repeatedly in agreement, and then said seriously, "Young Hero Ling's safe return is a great thing for our entire Equal of Heaven Escort Agency. However, the West Mountain Sect Master is currently at the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, so it's best that the news doesn't leak out. It's best that we avoid conflict for now." "You're right, Chief Escort. I was thinking the same thing. To tell you the truth, I've come back this time to bid farewell to the two of you," Lin Yi said. "Farewell?" The Qi father and son were both shocked. Qi Wenhan hurriedly asked, "Brother Ling, could it be that you're leaving the southern lands?" Chapter 45-39, Farewell. Chapter 45-36. "Yes, I came to South Continent this time to hunt down Wu Baoyang, the evil cultivator. Now that the task has been completed and I've been out for more than half a year, it's time to return to the North Island," Lin Yi explained. Speaking of which, his experience in the past half a year in the South Continent could be said to be wonderful. Regardless of what he should or should not have experienced, Lin Yi went through all of them. His realm of strength skyrocketed from the early stage of the Gold Core realm to the present peak of the middle stage of the Gold Core realm. He caused a lot of life and death grudges, and at the same time, he made a friend like Qi Wenhan. Now, it could be said that he had completed his mission and could retreat unscathed. That's true. Now Wei Arc City is guarded by the old devil of West Mountain Sect. It's really dangerous for you, Brother Ling. You can take shelter when you go back to the North Island." Qi Mingyuan pondered for a moment and nodded. Brother Ling, are you sure you can report back empty-handed?" Qi Wenhan was a little worried. Normally, for this kind of wanted mission, you have to at least bring back a head, right? Only with a head could report back. This was an unwritten rule in many sect missions. After all, there was no proof. If Lin Yi went back empty-handed and said that he killed Wu Baoyang, what if people didn't believe him? Qi Mingyuan couldn't help but frown when he heard this. Although Wu Baoyang was killed by Lin Yi, his head was not cut off. That's easy to say. If I killed Wu Baoyang in private, it's really hard to explain. But this time, He was killed in public in the arena of the South Continent's escort agency grand event, and everyone knows that I killed him. After I go back, let them investigate a little, and the truth will come to light." Lin Yi waved his hand indifferently. Now, with his status in the 3 major pavilions of the North Island, he was a person who was recognized by the pavilion master of Towering Pavilion, Shanghai Tianhua, in public, and the pavilion master of Blue Cloud Pavilion, Yuzhenyang, also looked up to him. Unless they had eaten the heart of a bear or the heart of a leopard, who would dare to make things difficult for Lin Yi in this kind of matter? That would be for the best. Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan both nodded. "It's not convenient for me to make a public appearance this time, and I can't bid farewell to all of you in public. I'll have to trouble Chief Escort and Brother Qi to apologize on my behalf after I leave," Lin Yi requested. "Well said, well said. Now that the situation is special, everyone can understand." Qi Mingyuan agreed. "By the way, there's one more thing I'd like to trouble Brother Qi with. There are too many people at the Hong Chamber of Commerce. It's not convenient for me to bid farewell to Manager Chai, so I'd like to write a letter for Brother Qi to deliver on my behalf," Lin Yi said. "No problem. It just so happens that I've invited shopkeeper Chai to accompany me for tomorrow's meal. It's no trouble at all. Leave it to me." Qi Wenhan patted his chest and nodded as he prepared a brush, ink, and paper for Lin Yi. "Okay." Lin Yi immediately took the pen and paper and started writing. There weren't any unnecessary pleasantries, just a few words of advice and comfort. It was enough to let honest Chai know that he and Hong Zhong were always paying attention to him. After writing in one breath, Lin Yi asked Qi Wenhan to put away the letter. He was about to leave when he suddenly remembered something. He immediately said to Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan, "This time at the South Island, I accidentally heard a piece of news. If nothing goes wrong, it will affect the situation of the entire South Continent. I think you need to be mentally prepared. Young hero Ling, please speak." It was rare to see Lin Yi so serious. Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan's expressions instantly turned solemn. They secretly wondered what kind of news could affect the situation of the entire South Continent. According to the internal news of the Spirit Beast clan, they're already preparing to levy taxes on all human cultivators in the South Continent. As for when exactly it will start, it's still unknown. But it should happen sooner or later. So you better quickly discuss a strategy to avoid becoming cannon fodder, Lin Yi warned. This news was too shocking. Lin Yi didn't want to reveal it. However, he couldn't just stand by the side and watch the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Even if he couldn't be of much help, he could at least warn them. What? The Spirit Beast clan is going to levy taxes? Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan were instantly shocked. Their faces were full of shock, and they couldn't help but reveal a terrified expression. How could this be? There hasn't been such a precedent in the past thousands of years. There really hasn't been such a precedent in the past. However, the Spirit Beast clan's authority had just undergone a huge change not long ago. This proposal to levy taxes was brought up by the person who was in power at the Spirit Beast gathering. It can't be as simple as drawing a pie in the sky. They must be serious, Lin Yi explained. This news. It's too shocking. Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan slumped into their spacious armchairs at the same time. It took them a long time to digest the shock and panic brought about by Lin Yi's news. In reality, if Lin Yi hadn't said this, they would never have believed that the Spirit Beast clan had the idea to levy taxes. Were they trying to provoke a war between humans and beasts? It was true that the native human cultivators of the South Continent Sea would never be able to fight against the insufferably powerful Spirit Beast clan head-on. However, this didn't stop them from asking for help from the human sects on the other Heaven Stage Islands. Due to the abundance of real estate in the South Continent Sea, especially as it was close to the South Island, which was a primeval land blessed by nature, almost every famous sect on the Heaven Stage Islands had set up a stronghold here. If the Spirit Beast clan really touched their interests and incurred the wrath of the masses, no matter how many powerful spirit beast experts they had, they wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand. Just the sum of the human forces that had suffered losses was enough to make the spirit beast clan suffer. Based on the difference in strength between the two sides, it was hard to say who would emerge victorious on the day of the war. Suddenly, Qi Mingyuan rose to his feet and bowed deeply to Lin Yi. He nodded in gratitude and said, "Young hero Ling, you've saved our lives. If it weren't for your reminder, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency might have been the first unlucky souls to be targeted. On behalf of the entire agency, I thank you for saving our lives." This wasn't an alarmist statement. Unlike before, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was now the flag-bearer of escort agencies in the South Continent Sea. Their business was expanding at an extremely fast pace. Almost every day, new sea territories would be added to the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's business territory. In just over a month, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's escort ships frequently appeared in all the well-known sea territories of the South Continent. In this way, if the Spirit Beast Clan's experts were to make a move, no matter which sea territory was the first to levy taxes, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency would always be among the first to be taxed. If the Spirit Beast Clan was not mentally prepared and acted rashly, the consequences would be unimaginable. After all, the Spirit Beast Clan was not as cautious as the West Mountain Elder sect. Before they acted, they would weigh the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's weight. In their eyes, the so-called overlord of the escort agencies of the South Continent was nothing more than dog's fart. If one dared to disobey them in the slightest, the Spirit Beast Clan would kill their entire family without a second thought. They could also make an example out of them, killing two birds with one stone. Chapter 45-40, Shocking News. Chapter 45-37. Regardless of how things developed in the future, it was foreseeable that a large number of people would die when the Spiritual Beast Clan began to collect taxes. After all, using blood to pave the way was the Spiritual Beast Clan's style of doing things. The Heavens Equal Escort Agency was originally on the list, but with Lin Yi's reminder, as long as they knew what was good for them and made preparations beforehand, they would still have a chance of survival. Since we're all on the same side, is there a need to be so polite? Lin Yi hurriedly helped Qi Mingyuan up. He purposely said this so that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency could pass the tax without any problems, not so that everyone would be grateful. "Father, Brother Ling, should we quickly leak this information so that the others can be prepared? Otherwise, many people will die." Qi Wenhan still had a nervous expression on his face. Lin Yi glanced at Qi Mingyuan and did not say anything. He was only responsible for passing the information to the two of them, as well as honest Chai. As for the lives of the others, it did not matter much to him. More importantly, if this information were to spread, it would not necessarily be a good thing. No, unless the Spiritual Beast Clan really starts to move. Otherwise, if we leak this information from our mouths, we will definitely become the target of everyone. The Spiritual Beast Clan will look for us first, and that is a price we cannot afford to pay. Qi Mingyuan shook his head decisively. All right. Although Qi Wenhan was hot-blooded, he was not a brainless person. After thinking through the pros and cons, he did not dwell on this matter anymore. After all, no matter what it was, it could not be more important than the lives of his own Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Wenhan, remember this. Young swordsman Ling's information must be kept strictly confidential, not even the slightest bit of it can be leaked out, even to our own people. I will make secret arrangements for what to do next, you just have to act as if this matter never happened, understand? Qi Mingyuan was still a little worried as he reminded Wenhan. This matter was very important. This matter had to be prepared early. More importantly, it had to be kept strictly confidential. If even the slightest bit of information was leaked, it would be a disaster for the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency. Of course, Qi Mingyuan was fine with it. What he was afraid of was that his son would do something stupid for the sake of his so-called loyalty. The consequences would be unimaginable. "Father, don't worry. I know what's important. I won't joke around with the lives of so many people in our escort agency. Chi Wenhan nodded in a low voice. However, he would not be careless when it came to such an important matter. Otherwise, he would not be qualified to take over the Equal of Heaven escort agency. Since that's the case, I'll take my leave. Lin Yi said upon seeing this. He had said his goodbyes and warned them. Staying at the Equal of Heaven escort agency was unnecessary. Furthermore, there were so many spies from the Dragon Boat escort agency outside. To him, this place had become a troublesome place. It was not as safe as the outside world. Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan looked at each other. Both of them wanted Lin Yi to stay for a few more days. They wanted to take this opportunity to properly thank this great hero, and then send him off in style. However, their current conditions did not allow it. Doing something unnecessary would only ruin things, so they did not dare to make him stay. Now that the situation is special, we don't dare to keep you. We're on the same side, so let's not be so formal. However, young hero Ling, you must remember that you will always be a part of the Equal of Heaven escort agency. If there's anything you need, as long as you give us a word, whether it's a mountain of swords or a wok of boiling oil, we'll do anything for you. Qi Mingyuan said solemnly. That's right. The escort agency's current foundation was built by you, Brother Ling. There's nothing much to say about us brothers. We'll share blessings and misfortunes together. If you have to shoulder everything alone, that's not very loyal, Qi Wenhan said seriously. Don't worry. If there's a need, I won't stand on ceremony with you. Lin Yi smiled and nodded. He could not help but feel a surge of warmth in his heart. The Heaven's Equal escort agency's current strength was naturally nothing compared to the 5 great islands of the Heaven rank. However, it was still one of the overlords of the South Continent seas, especially now that its strength had skyrocketed. If it could smoothly survive the upcoming calamity, it definitely wouldn't be looked down upon in the future. This was a force that couldn't be underestimated, and it might come in handy in the future. After bidding farewell to Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan, Lin Yi immediately climbed over the wall and escaped under the cover of the night. He avoided the many spies of the Dragon Boat escort agency and found a remote inn to stay. However, he did not stay in the inn for long. In less than 6 hours, he left the inn when the sky outside began to brighten. He immediately went straight to the Crescent Pier. Of course, it was impossible to return to the North Island by sea. Not to mention the fact that there was no direct route to the North Island. Even if there was, it would probably take at least half a year at sea. Lin Yi did not have that much free time. Therefore, there was only one way to return to the North Island, and that was to ride a flying spirit beast. Coincidentally, Huang Xiaodao's large spirit bird was being kept here. When the Morning Star Academy came to Crescent City to select disciples, Huang Xiaotao could have taken the spirit bird with her. After all, it was a loyal companion that she had relied on for many years. However, in order to make things easier for Lin Yi, she eventually left it behind. Still wearing the 1,000 silk mask, Lin Yi did not attract any special attention during the entire process of receiving the spirit bird. Only the servant who received him looked at him in surprise. This was because in the previous records, the owner of the spirit bird was a woman with the surname Huang, and it was said that she had a close relationship with the famous Ling Yi. However, the person in front of him was a crude country bumpkin, completely different from the norm. However, despite the doubts in his heart, the servant did not ask too many questions. For a small character like him with low strength to survive in the waters of the South Continent, he had to keep his mouth shut. Otherwise, with the atmosphere of killing people on the streets, it was easy for trouble to come from a loose tongue. Anyway, this bumpkin had a special number plate on him, and he had paid enough fees for the period of time. The servant quickly led Lin Yi to the side of the spirit bird. Spirit beasts were extremely intelligent. Although this spirit bird was not the one that Lin Yi had tamed, it was still very enthusiastic and excited to see Lin Yi again after such a long time. Of course, it knew that Lin Yi was its male owner. Moreover, before Huang Xiaotao left, she had secretly come to see it and told it to listen to Lin Yi's instructions. Chapter 45-38. I'm sorry to have wronged you these days. I'll reward you well when I go back. Lin Yi stroked the spirit bird's neck happily. The nursing station wouldn't embezzle the spirit beast's food, but that was all. Spirit beasts, like humans, needed companionship and communication. After returning to the North Island, Lin Yi had to spend more time on this spirit bird. Otherwise, how could he repay Huang Xiaotao's kindness? The spirit bird responded clearly, bending its head and rubbing against Lin Yi intimately. It seemed that it was very satisfied with its male master. Lin Yi smiled slightly and then jumped onto the spirit bird's back. After a loud cry, the spirit bird spread its wings and flapped them slightly. Immediately, it rose quickly and steadily into the air. It was true that the spirit bird was a flying spirit beast made for human cultivators. Feeling the whistling wind in his ears and looking at the rising red sun in the distance, Lin Yi was in a good mood. After being out for so long, he was finally going back. The spirit bird was very intelligent. It could clearly remember any route it flew over once. Therefore, this time, Lin Yi didn't even need to point the way. The spirit bird could find the way back to the North Island by itself, and it was more accurate and reliable than Lin Yi. Therefore, he only needed to sit on the back of the spirit bird and practice. Lin Yi stretched comfortably on the back of the spirit bird. When he was about to sit down and practice, the jade pendant suddenly sounded a warning. Even the spirit bird seemed to sense some danger and became very panicked. Lin Yi's heart suddenly tightened. He quickly looked around vigilantly. What's going on? Why, Lin Yi Jr., you really didn't die? A cloud of black fog appeared behind him out of thin air. At the same time, it was accompanied by the West Mountain Patriarch's sneer and exclamation with some disbelief. Even I was covered in dust and almost died in that damn place. With your insignificant strength, you were able to escape. How lucky are you? Looking at the West Mountain Patriarch who was gradually becoming visible in the black fog, Lin Yi was so shocked that his heart skipped a beat. His expression changed. The reason why he had been so cautious on his return this time, even going to the Equal Heaven Escort Agency in the middle of the night without showing his face, was to guard against this West Mountain old sect master. Who would have thought that he would still end up like this? How did this guy know about him? However, Lin Yi quickly understood. Not only did the Dragon Boat Escort Agency have spies around the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency, but they also had spies at the docks. Perhaps even the manservants at the Spirit Beast nursing station were their people. Lin Yi's actions could not be said to be careless, but there was a hurdle that he could not bypass. He had to retrieve the spirit bird that Huang Xiaotao had placed here. This was the only flaw, and it was also a fatal flaw. Once he took Huang Xiaotao's spirit bird, it would be useless even if he changed his appearance. People could easily guess his identity just by looking at him riding on the spirit bird. The West Mountain Old Sect Master received the news. Naturally, he would rush over immediately like now. He was too careless. Lin Yi secretly regretted it, but he really had no choice. Even if it was to avoid the West Mountain Old Sect Master, he couldn't just give up Huang Xiaotao's spirit bird, right? If it wasn't for someone informing me, I wouldn't have been able to recognize you if you had changed into such a vulgar appearance. However, looking at your current performance, you're undoubtedly Lin Yi. This is really the will of the heavens helping me. Jia 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 jia. The West Mountain Old Sect Master sneered complacently. He now hated Lin Yi to the core. This was not only related to the death of his two disciples, Wu Baoliang and Cheng Haonan, but also not just to refine the trump card puppet. It was also for his own face. The last time he chased after Lin Yi under the watchful eyes of the public, he did not expect to be defeated. Lin Yi could neither kill him nor catch him. Instead, he was embarrassed in the South Island. How could he, a dignified evil cultivator tycoon of the opening period, endure this? As a tycoon of evil cultivators, to be honest, West Mountain Old Sect Master did not care much about his disciples being killed. Anyway, he had always regarded human life as grass. If a disciple died, he could take another disciple. It was no big deal. But at his level, he could never lose his face no matter what the occasion was. Otherwise, he would not only be laughed at, but it would also greatly affect his deterrent power. If a tycoon of evil cultivators could not scare people and control the situation, what was the point of showing up? The sudden appearance of West Mountain Old Sect Master made Lin Yi, who was in a good mood, feel as if a bucket of ice water was poured on his head. But fortunately, his nerves were tough. After seeing West Mountain Old Sect Master, although he was inevitably stunned, he quickly reacted and hurriedly drove the spirit bird to escape. The flying speed of the spirit bird was extremely fast. It was first class among all flying spirit beasts. In terms of absolute speed, it was at least comparable to Lin Yi's extreme butterfly micro-steps on the ground. Although West Mountain Old Sect Master seemed to be able to fly, compared with real flying spirit beasts, he could only be regarded as floating at most. His speed in the air was certainly not comparable with the spirit bird. It was a pity that West Mountain Old Sect Master didn't need to be very fast to chase people. As long as his divine awareness locked on Lin Yi's position like last time, he could directly catch up with him in an instant. This kind of amazing skill couldn't be gotten rid of by speed alone. One of the key reasons why he could escape last time was that Lin Yi was covered with swamp mud, which successfully isolated him from the West Mountain Old Sect Master's divine awareness. That was why he could escape with the help of the ghost. Otherwise, no matter how fast he was, no matter how hard he tried to use the extreme butterfly micro-steps, it would be useless. During the month in the South Island, Lin Yi collected some swamp mud with the same effect in the space of the jade pendant. But now he was in a hurry, and it was impossible for West Mountain Old Sect Master to give him the chance to apply swamp mud on his body. Besides, it was useless to apply swamp mud on himself. West Mountain Old Sect Master only needed to lock on his spirit bird. What was worse was that today happened to be a good day. Originally, the sea fog could more or less obstruct the West Mountain Old Sect Master's divine awareness. But now it was a rare clear sky. Even if there was no divine awareness, he could see Lin Yi with his eyes. Don't be afraid. Run in the direction of the 5 poisoned swamp. The ghost's voice sounded in his mind at the right time. Okay. Lin Yi immediately nodded decisively. It seemed that he could only use the same trick again. He escaped to the South Island like last time and scared the old devil away. Looking at all the surrounding places, perhaps only those spirit beasts in the South Island could make West Mountain Old Sect Master flinch. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.